Okay, this is planning board, April 24th. We have a quorum of people for a public hearing. So I'll open up this first public hearing, which is on Water Street. The planning board will hold a public hearing pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 5, on Wednesday, April 24th, 2019, at 7:30 p.m. in the Town Hall, 6063 Main Street, Bolton, Mass., to consider and receive comments from interested parties concerning a zoning article to appear on the warrant of the annual town meeting, which will be held on Monday, May 6th, 2019. The article is summarized as follows. Amendment to Bolton, Massachusetts Town Base Map and Zoning Map dated September 2016 to amend zoning district boundary lines associated with industrial business and limited business and amend corresponding boundary lines of the wireless communications overlay districts. So basically this was missed by us the first time through in the first public hearing. The wireless communications overlay district followed the business zone lines, and because we tweaked them here or there, this also had to follow that, so it made sense. That's basically it, right, Erica?
It is, yeah.
I mean, the zones aren't changing too much, so it's being taken away on some and added on others, so. And any special permit for any wireless communication goes through the Board of Selectmen, right?
It does, yeah.
So. I don't really have anything to add on this. It's just a correction on our part.
Yeah, to make it consistent.
Anybody?
Is this hearing only about the wireless part?
Yes. We already had our public hearing for all our bylaws.
Okay.
Why did you have something to?
Yeah. But I guess
Um,
it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, we had it, what, in February?
We did.
You can say something if you want. You here?
Okay. I mean, it sort of echoes what I had talked to you before when I ran into you. I think you should exclude the parcel that includes Global Financial. I think it's 579, maybe.
Exclude the parcel for what? For rezoning?
Yeah. There's a couple reasons of concern. Number one, the majority of that, unlike all the other ones that you're doing, sort of the majority of that lot is not what you would be changing it to. It looks like most all your table, you're changing the part of a split zone that is the minority of the lot to become what the majority of the lot is. So that sort of makes sense to me, I'm fine with that. But this particular property, that's not what you're doing, and also this particular property is like one of the iconic pieces of property in town with a beautiful, beautiful house that's very, we're lucky to have. It's in the historic district, and I believe strongly that if you change the zoning to limited business for the whole lot, you're sort of condemning that house for the next owner. If somebody is buying it for business purposes to develop the larger lot, which is what you were trying to encourage, I assume, then you're really just sort of putting a target on that house to be torn down, because the most normal way to develop that property is to go straight in and develop and put, you know, business on both frontages and and develop more of the back. And you know, that house, we've just been extremely lucky that it's been maintained very well.
Have you
But
been in there?
it is a very expensive house.
Have you been in the house?
Yeah,
I mean, it's beautiful.
it is beautiful.
There's no way that I could ever imagine that anybody would want to take down and replace that house. It's just not possible.
Well,
It's set up for offices. I mean, it's awesome, and it would have to go through the town anyway. I mean,
Really?
No
is it a
No.
historic?
huh?
It is
It's just
historic,
historic.
but that only gives you 6 months to
Yeah.
plead
Yeah.
something, and, you know, most of the time, they don't have, they can just wait 6 months and go ahead and demolish it. But it is naive if you think that. I mean, I really.
I know, you've told me many times
I
you think I'm
mean,
naive.
it's- And also, I guess my real feeling is, why bother doing it? Why don't you wait until you need to do it? Or if there's some reason to do it, or the master plan determines that the back lot is so valuable that we, need to do something there. I mean, this is just so premature to do a major change to a property like that. It's just you're just playing with fire, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And that it would be easy for you to just strike it, go ahead with all the other stuff, which, is more defensible than this. And the few people I've talked to, I don't think Martha Remington is here today, but when I talked to her about it, she was just absolutely shocked. Because she said she had no idea, nobody had told the Historic Commission about these changes, nobody, at first she didn't even believe me. I said, no, read
So I don't
the
want to get
warrant."
too much into it because it's not on the agenda, but I'm just being kind and letting you
Yeah.
talk because you're here.
Okay,
But they can redevelop it now. They can tear it down just as easily. It's currently 4 acres of business. Actually you could use the whole 16 acres. Just build it on the 4 acres. How does it work exactly?
So the use needs to be maintained on the limited business portion.
Right, but can they use the entire 16 acre parcel in the calculation? Probably not.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, but still they can.
But the
4 acres,
building located
40,000.
right now on the business portion?
It is.
Yeah. So
The majority of it,
40,000,
I think,
160,000.
required, I
So
think.
right now, you can tear it down and build a 16,000 square foot building, as it stands.
right, but there's a lot less incentive to do that.
Yeah.
You're priming the pump, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You're priming the pump, and, I don't know why you're doing that. I had asked Erica previously if that.
Well, I mean, it's not on our
Ask
agenda,
for
so
that.
we're not voting on it, and I don't want to have much discussion, but you have
Okay.
100% full right to bring it up at town meeting. I'm sure you will.
Okay,
But on the question at hand is just making sure that the boundary lines for the wireless match up with what we're doing. So I have no comments about that, so if somebody want to make a motion?
What's the motion?
First, we need to close these.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
So I make a motion to amend the Bolton, Massachusetts town-based map and zoning map to align the zoning district boundaries, the proposed zoning district boundaries with the wireless communications overlay district.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So now we have another public hearing on the subdivision rules and regs. So I'll just read this out. The planning board will hold a public hearing pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 81Q on Wednesday, April 24th, 2019 at 7:40 PM in the Town Hall, 663 Main Street, Bolton, Massachusetts, to amend the Town of Bolton subdivision rules and regulations. So we've gone through this outside of public hearing. But we have, what did I do with that? Right. We need to go through in a public hearing and probably just touch on the major pieces, just in case anybody wants to add anything. Is that correct, Erica?
It is, yeah.
Okay. So, the first thing we changed is,
I think it's page 27? Oh, no.
No.
Sorry,
I think
page
it's
15.
15. And I apologize, for some reason there were a few pages that did not print out in color in your packet, so I had to highlight them.
Oh,
I
okay.
have no idea why.
yeah. So, the change we made is
From 8, existing tree.
It will be, yeah.
height of, wait, breast height. 10. So we increased it from 8 to 10
So
inches.
yeah, this one has to be shown on this one.
Yeah, yeah. So all trees of 10 inches in diameter.
I do.
Or greater need to be
Agreed.
shown.
Yep.
And
And
then-
also the proposed, the
Snow
snow storage locations need to be shown.
And I think there was a, did we wanna go over that? Is there a question about us adding the proposed snow storage?
There is, and I actually talked to Joe
Talked to
Lynch,
Joe.
our DPW director today about it, so his comment to me, initially when we had talked about this, it had to do with the driveway locations, and it was in reference to snow location. And talking with him today, his concerns actually expand further than just snow storage. What he ideally wanted, for the regulations to say was that at the cul-de-sac ends, that the preliminary locations of the driveways be shown, because that, he likes to be able to review that, because that impacts location of sidewalk, street sweeping, snow storage, a whole gamut of things that he would review, and it's best if he can see that early on in the review process. So, we would change, so based on the conversation I had with them today, we would change that, to be the approximate driveway locations along a proposed cul-de-sac, something, to that effect.
So we don't wanna show proposed snow storage locations.
Not really, it was
Okay.
more, he wants to see the driveway curb cuts.
Okay.
So the wording's changing then?
Well, and then, I don't know, for Hamlin, do you wanna speak to this as well? Because I know you were kinda going back and forth with me and Joe on this and whether or not it's appropriate to do that, because it doesn't really fall under subdivision control law.
Right, and normally speaking, you wouldn't show the driveway locations and the houses. You show the lots and the roadway layout, construction, so forth and so on. So, once again, Joe wants to see how the driveways are laid out, and just as an example, he said, maybe that would mean, his suggestion would be to remove 2 lots or something like that. And I don't know if that's something the planning board
No.
can say, I would think it isn't, if they meet zoning. So it is good that he will review it and have his comments, but I don't know what the verbiage is. I don't think, I mean, you can ask to do anything, and he's saying just show the driveways on the cul-de-sac or throughout the whole
Just the
subdivision,
cul-de-sac.
right? So,
Yeah.
and that's what he's pointing towards. So you can still have it.
I mean, I understood his point today when we talked about it, because regardless, if we weren't doing a subdivision, typically, we always like to reduce the number of curb cuts, right? We're always asking for shared driveways or common driveways. Why would a subdivision be any different? So I understand his point. If he reviews it and says this isn't gonna work, make them do a common driveway, make them do a shared driveway. I don't know that it necessarily leads to having to get rid of a lot, it's more, so I kinda get where he's going with this. So I think it's appropriate for preliminary review to, if they can just at least start thinking about that, I don't know. If it's gonna impact DPW's, the.
Process.
Yeah, exactly.
And one of the issues that can come up is, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you have your backland or hammerhead lots, you can have 2 and then a regular and 2. So theoretically, you could have 2 small frontages, a regular frontage and 2 more small ones, so 5 frontages in a short arc of them. So it can have it without common driveways. But that leads to, as we pointed out today, and I know you weren't there, these small grass strips in between the driveways where there's no it's very hard to curb it. That's an issue we have with Century Mill.
Yeah.
And also for plowing, but to me, the plowing is the plowing. It's, you go down a road, you plow, you fill everybody's driveway. You go around a cul-de-sac, it's up to them to clear their driveway. He's not gonna push it onto there, but as he's going around, it's going to feather off to the sides and mound up in a lot of the driveways, but that happens on a regular straightaway too. So so getting back to the term snow storage areas, that would be a hard thing to even specify, because then he, as the DPW director and DPW group, have to follow a plan that's
Yeah.
different from one project to another, and they're gonna do it the way they can easily do it.
Right, you need snow storage spots all over town then. I mean, it's just a public road, right?
So getting back to it's more to him to look at where the driveways are located based on the house lots. But that would be under his normal review anyways. When you get a subdivision in, you give it to the various departments.
So we don't need to add anything then? Do we?
Well, no, he would like to see the driveway locations on cul-de-sacs.
So do we change?
That was his,
so-
that was
so do
his
we change
recommendation.
Q to proposed curb cuts on in
Proposed-
cul-de-sacs?
Driveway curb cuts along cul-de-sac?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
there's no perfect, really, review process, because like Century Mill Estates, they came forward for how many different A and Rs.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the lot lines could change anyway, but again, I think this
There's
is
a
just,
preliminary aspect.
if you could try and, you know, review as much as you can initially, then.
All right,
makes
so
it
we'll
easier.
change
You-
Q to show proposed driveway curb cuts along cul-de-sacs.
Do we need a motion for that, or just?
Do it all at the end.
Or-
All at the end, it's
Okay,
fine.
yeah.
And next,
Did you say cul-de-sac ends, or just cul-de-sac?
I just said along cul-de-sacs.
Okay.
Well, any,
So 17 is not.
But a cul-de-sac is the 500-foot road, that's a cul-de-sac, that called cul-de-sac, so I think it might be cul-de-sac ends.
oh, I get,
That's what
oh,
she's
because
saying.
you're saying the whole thing is considered a
Can be.
You can
yeah,
say
turned
along
a cul-de-sac, right?
cul-de-sac ends, that's fine.
So proposed
Or
curb
or
cuts
what
along
what do we
cul-de-sac
call
ends.
The circular,
the
It's
circle?
also called a cul-de-sac.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
that's-
the whole road, if you
It's
look, I think
considered-
dead ends are called cul-de-sacs.
Okay.
okay, all right.
So page 18 is just wording, right?
Well,
17.
17 is taking, town council doesn't want to see preliminaries.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna skip it on that. I
Yeah.
guess I'll say anything. Just,
Okay.
page 18 is just wording, page 19 is.
Yeah.
So you're including boring and or deep test hole data. What is,
So testing within the limits of the roadway, they can either do deep test holes or borings. In the past, we were having developers consistently waive the boring requirement because they had done other types of testing, so we wanna give them that
just
flexibility.
dug a hole instead? Okay, and then the traffic study, you change the word shall to may be required. So, I mean, so, okay, so
So it's
shall,
at
we
discretion.
had to waive it when it was shall,
Yeah.
but as may is like.
It's your, it's at your discretion.
Right, yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
Right.
So instead of waiving it, yeah.
And then there's some flexibility there on that 100 ADT if we, you know,
Yeah.
if we feel that that's, you know, the number, then we can go with that, or if you think it should, you know, if it's a higher number.
Or more, yeah, okay. Alright,
27,
we took out D, which was, oh, so the center line, horizontal
yeah,
curve.
it's just-
Yeah.
And so that was
kept
just,
24 feet.
that's, in layman's terms, that's what, because we waived that for,
We waived it
high
for
to
almost every,
everything.
yeah.
yeah, the way the water
To have your
flows.
horizontal vertical curve,
Yeah.
Cohen,
Beginning and ends coincide.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't,
Width of the road, we ended up just keeping at 24 feet because what we said is we should just leave it at the worst case. So, you know, if there's the potential of it gonna be 24 feet and we would want it to be 24 feet, this should set it to that. And if we do wanna waive it down to less, we didn't wanna put it to 20 and then it went, it would make sense for it to be 24 or something, so I think we just left it at 24.
I guess one question on that came up at the sidewalk phase, is the 40-foot right-of-way sufficient if you've got plantings and a sidewalk?
No, it isn't,
Okay,
especially if you have irrigation in the planting district.
so should we change that to keep to
50?
50-foot?
Well, we don't know if there'll be sidewalks and stuff there, so should we say up to 50 feet, or is it just set the number and be done with it?
Set it and forget it.
Erica? What do you think?
I think there should be some flexibility there, because I agree that there may be some subdivisions where a sidewalk may not be appropriate. You know, I don't know. I think we always require street trees, so that's a given,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
It's really the sidewalk, whether or not.
But if you don't have a sidewalk, 40 feet's fine to have a.
Right.
Well, that's why I said
right
up to 50 feet right away. You can say depending on sidewalks and 24 feet pavement. Is that too many words?
I kind of think that we should change it to 50, and then if they come back
And they wanna
and
waive it.
they want something
A waiver?
less, then the board could do a waiver.
Okay.
I don't know, what do you think, Fred? What do you think would be the
For
best?
the lane you're talking about?
For
Yeah,
For
the,
the
yeah,
land. For
The
land.
right of way.
There's no reason to have it smaller because the road's shorter. Or has less traffic. There's no reason to have a right of way. The right of way has no bearing on the traffic.
It bears on what the town's gonna maintain. I mean,
Right,
it's really
and what they
ownership of
wanna
the-
put in there.
Yeah.
Way back, it all started with sidewalks on both sides, so way
Yeah.
back.
yeah.
Many years ago in all the different towns and cities, since you needed all that, you had telephone poles and so forth and so on.
If you have sidewalks on both sides, 40
What's that?
feet, if you have sidewalks on both sides, 40 feet is definitely not.
It does make it, it gives you, with the berm, you have 13
You're
feet,
just
12,
there.
13, you have another 7. So you're just making the sidewalk,
Just-
you just gonna be right against the curve.
Yeah.
really tight.
And
Yeah.
and no
And no
plantings.
plantings.
No,
Yeah.
no room for plantings.
So what are you saying? We just leave it at 40 or what are you saying?
I think he said, I think make it
I was
50.
agreeing to leave it 50.
Yeah.
There's no,
Yeah,
See,
it's
there's
for,
no fancy-
well,
Well, it
the
is
way
for-
is there for the extra stuff on the side. Sidewalks, hydrants, telephone poles and everything else.
right.
Plantings, so it has no bearing on traffic, so a lane, what I'm saying is no reason for a lane to be smaller than a minor street.
Minor street,
Right,
gotcha,
as far as right of way goes,
yeah.
And from a developer's perspective, does it make a difference?
yes, because they lose,
Some acreage,
Tens.
some square
they
footage for
lose
their
acreage
lots.
all the way along the road, 5 feet more on each side. I'm not saying it's a lot, but they lose
But
that.
it would be pretty minimal, I think, per lot. But, yeah.
Right,
yeah,
it's,
Okay.
they all let them go into the plan development, which
But they can
creates
request a
waivers
waiver,
and
I
it
was
goes
just
with
gonna say.
smaller lots anyways.
Yeah.
So if someone were to come in
Everything else.
front with a road with
Yeah.
no
No
sidewalks,
sidewalks,
with
yeah.
trees, they could ask for a waiver for 40.
So we're changing that to
I
50.
think, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's appropriate, given that we've adopted complete streets and
Yeah,
we really should be looking at sidewalks anyway, I think it's better to have the 50 feet.
Okay. All right, sounds good. So dead end streets cul-de-sac shall not be longer than 500 feet. The board shall have final approval whether a cul-de-sac island shall be required. That's pretty much what we're doing, right?
Yep.
Dead end streets.
You've taken out the 1,500?
Yeah, 500, yeah.
Okay. Your
Um,
comments, those, yes.
Yeah, just for the
okay.
boards,
Just wanna make sure.
Yeah.
So we changed, this is where we changed, so we took out the requirement for an island and decreased the diameter, correct?
We're giving them flexibility to either do an island or
Yeah.
not do an
Yeah.
island.
it's what, yeah, what they
Yeah.
wanna do.
Yeah. And if they don't do an island, the diameter can be smaller.
Okay.
That's it for that one, right? Yeah.
29 is just, oh, streetlights. Will be at each intersection, which makes sense.
And then we took out at the
ends,
closed end of
yeah.
each cul-de-sac. Is that still on there?
I actually thought, Fred, you had a really good comment about that when we had talked about this. So I was telling him that the board waived the intersection lights at Century Mill. And Fred, your comment to me was, well, what's the difference between that intersection and the intersection with Spectacle Hill or Century Mill Road? And he has a point. At some point, that subdivision will be an accepted way, and they would all be intersections, a major, not major, but you know what I mean, an intersection with from one public way to another. I never thought of it that way. I've always thought of it as being an internal, intersection within the subdivision.
Well, but it's just it'll be a less traveled road.
But that's, the way I look at it is this, fire and police said they didn't care if there was even a light at the intersection, right?
Just, they wanted them at the entrances,
Right, the entrance to the subdivision.
yeah.
But didn't care about the others, but a light, your roads are dark and narrow. So someone driving down there may be looking for a turn, is not looking all the time, and someone might pull out in the dark, and they might not see him. At least at an intersection, you have a light illuminating the intersections. So whether they're small, low travel or high travel, personally, I don't think there's a difference.
Well, it's, I mean, I think we leave this in, so it's at.
I guess it's a moot point, it's
Yeah.
in there, but I just
Yeah.
thought it was a good point that hadn't come up before.
On 30, the only thing I think I just noticed now, you just need to add the word peak. It says the design of stormwater management systems for the subdivision shall not increase the volumes or rates of district, it should be peak volumes or peak rates.
So I went back to take a look at our old subdivision rules and regs, and that was in there, we just hadn't been enforcing it for whatever reason, for volume.
Wow,
So,
huh,
and Fred and I talked about that as well, because his concerns, you know, with holding back the volume, you know, with sites that have really poor soils, the C and D soils, and if they can't infiltrate, how are they gonna be able to hold back that volume? And I know you had said on a lot of the projects you're working on right now, you're required to do that, so have you run into that? And what do you do?
large systems,
Okay,
it's a lot of storage.
yeah,
Because
you can't even design certain infiltration systems in those types of soils.
well, you still, I mean, even with D soils, you have some infiltration, it's just, it's minimal.
Very,
It's
very.
minimal. I mean, I've designed stormwater infiltration systems on D sites. The only sites where I haven't done infiltration is when it's contaminated or where groundwater's at the height, so. It can be done. You can have large systems.
So what he's saying was like huge basins and.
Very big. I mean, if you have good soils, it's not even a question, because theoretically you have zero runoff in the existing conditions. So you have a basin that's
Yeah.
gonna take all of it and infiltrate it, and you have zero on the post. The thing about the volumes, I think that maybe people understand, is the peak rate is the same. If it's 10 cubic feet per second, it's still gonna be 10. But it will run for a longer period of time because you have more water coming off the paved and
So you've
roadways.
increased your volume from the
Right.
site.
So you've increased the volume, but the peak, the rate it's going by everyone is the same. It just runs for a longer time compared to the pre-development conditions.
But you can still increase downstream flooding.
Way in the bigger,
Yeah.
in my opinion, in the bigger catchment areas where theoretically there's always flooding.
I disagree with that, but I mean, it's just, it's in there, so, I mean, I would say we would wanna look at that and try to, someone could always request a waiver if they have D soils and they're really not able to meet the peak volumes, and maybe that's an exception, that's an allowable thing, you know, we could look at for sites that have site constraints, but, I think it's reasonable to ask, especially since it was already in there, that we're enforcing that.
But basically, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and I haven't designed in a while, so usually when you have a detention basin, you have a pipe near the bottom that drains out the basin eventually. If we're holding back, that's not holding back any volume. If we're holding back volumes, the pipe would have to be, let's say, halfway up the basin wall,
Mhm.
and so the bottom half would never leave.
Correct.
So that bottom half now, not the bottom half, now the basin might have to be 2 times, 3 times as big as would have been otherwise. Right, that's how it'd be designed, simply put.
Yes, I think your 2 to 3 times isn't quite
No,
right,
no,
but
but whatever it
it,
is, yeah.
yes, the whole point of trying to match your peak volumes is you're making your system better to really make sure the runoff that's leaving the site is matching existing conditions.
Yeah.
That's,
Volume
and the
rate.
volume and the rate, that's really your way of making sure you're not increasing downstream flooding. That's how you do it.
I mean,
So-
it seems like it never stops raining these days, and
And-
and with
and-
we
and-
see,
and I mean,
it seems like it's only gonna get worse.
No, and I
Yeah,
I look
so-
at all these studies all the time,
Yeah.
and we're constantly being, I do a lot of work for towns, municipalities, and, I mean, one of the biggest things that they're concerned about is, you know, designing something that's gonna last for a while and not have, you know, irreparable damage, so I think it's you're right, there's a cost to it, there's a size to it. If you have really great soils, it's gonna be minimal. If you don't have really good soils, it could be significant, but maybe that's a case where they come in and they say, look, we're really
Yeah.
struggling with meeting the peak volumes.
Well, I mean, look what we're
but-
dealing with Keys Farm right now, so,
Yeah,
I mean, it's happening, you know?
yeah,
so.
I mean, I just, with towns that I've had to meet it, you have to meet it, they don't, you have to figure out a way to meet it. And I've designed very large subsurface systems that are huge, to do it, but certain towns, they just require it.
And they still drain within 72 hours.
Yep,
The
oh yeah,
companies.
oh yeah. The only time, I haven't met it, again, is if you have contaminated sites, you are not allowed to infiltrate.
Right,
Or, if you have sites where groundwater is pretty much at the surface,
right.
you're not gonna infiltrate. But those are those are acceptable reasons for not, infiltrating or meeting the peak volume, for that, so.
So then same thing we did with the common driveway, changing where we get the rainfall data from, right?
Yeah, this is, just a more current place to, and it's still based on some dated data, but it's the most current, data to use, most current rainfall data out there.
Page 30.
That's not 6 years old, that the Mass DEP stormwater standard still references.
So we added iron rods as markers for conservation land. That's what, another option instead of the monuments?
Right, we've been allowing
Yeah.
developments to do that.
Is that it?
That is it.
Comments from the board? Comments from the crowd? Alright.
I would like to, if you could just, sorry I was late.
Just state your name, please.
Margaret Campbell, 5 Spectacle Hill Road. So I just wanna make sure that I understand what we've just decided.
Sure.
Was it just decided that there needed to be some additional work?
So this is for this, just the subdivision rules and regs that we are updating. And we are clarifying in the subdivision regs, were you referring to the stormwater component that we were just
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah.
It actually, I guess, was already part of our subdivision regs. We were just,
We're doubling down.
yeah, that peak rates and peak volumes need to be met for the 210, 25, and 100-year storm event.
We weren't doing it to the 100-year storm event though, right?
Well, it was already in our regs, it just
The
wasn't,
100-year,
Yeah.
but not the NOAA one.
the rainfall
The
wasn't in
rainfall
there.
data
Yeah.
wasn't
So
in there.
we're just reinforcing that peak rates and peak volumes need to be met for the subdivision rules regs. The one thing that we're adding in is when you use the rainfall data to do your analysis, the Mass stormwater standards only require to use what's called technical paper 40. It's rainfall data from 1960. It's very outdated. There have been multiple studies and multiple information that's come out with more current rainfall data. And the NOAA Atlas 14, which is based off of 2014, or was released in 2014, is a much more common rainfall data that's been accepted and being used by multiple states and other towns. Massachusetts is a little slow in just requiring it. There's already other towns that are adopting it.
In general, is that higher?
It is higher, so it's reflecting the fact that we are getting higher rainfalls throughout the year.
Okay, can we get the- close the hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Second?
On favor?
Aye.
Okay, now,
I'll make a motion to approve the revisions as noted and as modified tonight for the subdivision rules and regulations.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Next up, Century Mill Estates. We're gonna be discussing, reviewing the bond for phases 2 and 4, as well as the bond for work related to the turnaround at Mill Pond Road. So, we're also, we're also going over the trees and firms.
So I'm gonna disappoint you a little bit. We're
Huh?
on the lot recently, but we didn't finish it by 8 o'clock tonight. So I'm hoping to be able to submit to Fred for review Monday, which typically he reviews it before we bring it to you guys anyways. So I'm hoping I'll have it done by Monday, give it to Fred, and then submit it to you guys.
So we won't vote, we won't.
No,
So, that's
I
a-
had some questions. Fred wasn't comfortable putting one together, and so I started continuing on what I had worked on earlier to put numbers together, but I wasn't here when the last bond was done for A and B, roads A and B, only when road C was done, so I was trying to use old information and got a little bogged down trying to decipher what it was, because numbers weren't matching. So I'm sorry I did not get that done, but I really tried at it. But I'm hoping I'll have it all done by Monday and
And then we'll just-
email it
So
to
how's
Fred
it,
and
so
Erica.
you just review it, you don't, Fred?
Typically,
The
he reviews it.
developer, their engineer comes up with a bond.
And then you.
Last time, I did do it
Right,
as a
as a courtesy.
courtesy.
Yeah.
But the lot, that was in 2016, that was road C being old. In 2014, I think, GCG, the original designers, did a bond estimate for roads A and B, which would be Mill Pond Road and Cypress Circle.
And the problem is that neither Erica nor I were here at that time, and what she had on file, when I added the numbers to what the last one Fred had done, it didn't compute to what the town's holding, so I'm trying to figure out where we're at, and I'm trying to put it together so it matches, so I'm sorry for the delay, but I'll have it submitted to Fred early in the week.
So you just postpone to the May 8th?
So is anything update not counting the,
I don't even know what you're looking at, so.
I'm not gonna, I'm just holding this. I'm not gonna refer to
I don't even
this.
know if piece of paper that is. You're gonna ask
Pretend
me
reading
questions
this, I don't
about
know. I'll flip it over so I don't confuse you. What is, so not counting the turnaround, are you updating bond numbers for other items?
it. Everything, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to compile what the last left off bond was, and
Well,
then,
do we typically, what,
cause the
why
last
would we
bond-
be adjusting the bond of what we already did? You could ask for reductions, but, why are we redoing the numbers for what we already accepted as bond items?
Well, there are things that I think have come up since then that weren't included, that need to be included.
Okay, I understand that.
And
that-
vice versa, work is done that was never
Right.
taken off.
So it just needs to be
Well, so that's a
updated across the
reduction.
board.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
or work that needs to be
Correct.
redone that isn't currently covered by the bond.
Things we're doing in the pavement,
Okay.
berm replacement, milling and binder, stuff like that, that's not on there, so we're trying to put numbers together that, you know, jive with what was done, that was never taken off, and what needs to be done, so.
Yeah.
It got a little more complicated than I expected when I was reviewing the final numbers, because the numbers didn't tie to what the town was holding, even from what the A and B bond and the C bonds said, so trying to figure that out. My bookkeeper's in on Monday, so hopefully she'll have some sort of record that I can.
And then, well, where are you with the turnaround bond? Do you have a pretty good handle on that, or
Turnaround
the,
bond,
the,
to be more specific.
the,
I was at the
uh,
last meeting, so if
oh,
there's
okay.
something I don't know about.
well, we were gonna, so what we said at the last meeting is, we would release bond up to 10%, which is what we can do,
Right.
based on our subdivision rules and
Which
regs.
goes back to the original bond amounts, correct?
Yep, the original, which is around 700,000 or so. But on top of that, we were gonna add, the cost to remove the easement.
Okay.
To remove the pavement, regrade, seed, whatever landscaping.
That's a-
So that was gonna be on top of the 10%. So
Okay.
we want that as like a line item in the bond.
I'll add that as a line item what I'm working on right now, that's fine. There's other things that have been added that weren't previously on the bond, so that's
Yeah.
fine.
Is there anything else to say about the bond then?
After we've got numbers to look at.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
no.
I'm gonna try and get it all put together by Monday, Tuesday, and get it over to Fred for review, so we've got
Alright.
plenty of time to review.
Well, let's go through the existing trees
Okay,
and the berms, right? Is that what we're talking about now?
so Erica had drawn up a plan upon our meeting this morning, and when I showed up early to go over it with her, there was a couple of discrepancies, so I went back and took some pictures. thank you all for coming out this morning. I know we started out as a little early, but
Turned out into a nice day.
not as bad as last time.
So
That's
why
true,
don't-
that's
Why
true.
don't we just go page by page?
Okay.
And then we'll, as we get the discrepancies,
Sure.
we can
Absolutely.
clarify.
Just for the audience, we're going through, so they're required to have a certain number of street trees, shade trees, I guess. So we're determining if any of the ones there can be used instead of removing and putting down new trees. And
There were,
then,
I was just, there were a fair amount of existing trees that were, designed to be left in place that are close to the
All
road.
growth trees.
close enough to where they should be.
Yeah,
I just-
very big mature trees.
I see some of that there.
Phil Fournier, 31 Spectacle Hill Road. I just don't know who's talking. He didn't introduce himself.
I'm sorry, my name's Fred Kuhn. I'm the project manager at Central Mill Estates. I work for
Okay.
Benedictine.
Okay, that would have been nice to know.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, so we wanna work through the list?
Sure, so let's start at the terminus for no time. So the trees that fall within the terminus area, obviously that will have to get done and be part of that bond.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
And then if we start on that side of the street, there's an existing tree that had that,
Yep.
the single trunk with the double trees on it, that's being maintained. And then this is one of the discrepancies. I thought there was only one tree, on that section of road that needed to be installed. There's actually two.
Yes.
Yes, I had said that there
There were
needed to be two, yes.
And that's what was in the email that I
Yeah,
emailed
so
to
this-
Erica. so.
This, you've got green and sultry, this needs to be green.
Yeah, so I'll update that and
Correct.
set different, so that's
Yeah.
one of the discrepancies. And then at the corner, there's an existing tree that can be used.
Right, that
Yep,
was.
that's
all those-
these, yeah.
You actually had pictures of those.
Yeah, these ones right here.
And then as we turn into Cider Circle, the tree at the corner there, we decided to eliminate because there's the stone wall.
Yep,
And same on the adjacent.
On the
Yep,
other side.
exactly,
Yeah.
and this one, because it was too close to the cistern
fire
and
cistern.
the other utilities.
Exactly, so there's 3 trees there that no longer need to be planted.
Yep,
Continuing on that side, same side of the road that I was initially talking about, there's 3 existing trees with, in front of lot 60A. I had them marked as needing to be installed, but
So this is a picture of
Fred
that
and I,
area.
yeah,
There's the existing trees right here and the driveway right here, and those are the hill trees.
yeah, these are, you
There's
can
no
see,
particular.
Yeah.
these are the 3 hill trees that we talked
Yeah.
about, that were
I
okay to
thought that
use.
was, I thought it was in front of lot 59, it's actually in front of lot 60, so
Right.
Yes.
I just need to update that.
So these are gonna be blue.
Yep, exactly. So, and then 59, you have a picture of
I do.
59, 'cause that was the one that we
Yeah.
kind of questioned.
I went back into the pictures. So
I thought
these are
59 was okay.
59's all old growth trees in front of this peak
Yeah.
house is 59.
Perfect,
All these
okay.
trees
Yeah, I might
Here
have additional
are
pictures
in
too.
front of 59, all these.
Okay, so
old
these are
There's
existing,
a
so,
close one.
alright. So actually, they're blue now, they'll stay blue.
Yep,
Blue
We're
is
talking-
Blue is
existing.
using-
these
Yes,
existing trees,
correct.
yep.
We're talking about the ones in front of lots.
59A.
59A.
Yeah.
I don't have a picture that went up,
I took this one when I was
Yeah.
here, so this is what I went back out for it. So this is the clump of old growths, and then there's old growths in front of 59,
yeah, that's what I had,
and then more
I
in
had
front of
that one too,
59.
yeah. right along there.
So-
Those are also in front of 59.
Yeah. Okay, good.
They're all in a row.
So Eric, you can kind of see these are existing
Yeah,
That's
trees
the-
along the left-hand side.
that's
Those
these
blue
guys,
ones,
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
yeah, so it doesn't make sense to.
I mean, they're actually closer together than the street trees. They're there, so.
So just so people can follow along, we're talking about installing a tree in front of 54A, 2 trees in front of 53A, 1 tree in front of 52A.
Approximately, those lot lines
Yeah.
may not be.
I mean, if you want
Close
to
enough,
maybe
yeah.
talk
Do
about the
the
ones that
A&R,
are changing for the plan.
Well, but the green is installed tree, right?
But no, that's always been there per plan.
Yeah,
Oh,
those
okay.
are per plan, but
Oh,
any
okay.
of the other ones are
So
modified.
it's really the blue and the red are the changes.
Okay,
So we
using
can, I
existing
can,
tree, yeah, that's fine.
so for example, across the way from Cider Circle, there were 2 cherry trees that
Yeah.
sort of adorned a driveway. We're gonna consider those street trees. So these are the,
We had street trees
The two
planted there, and
trees,
the
yeah.
Yeah.
homeowner removed them and changed them to cherry
I
trees.
think that's these,
Um,
These two,
yeah,
right
those two
here.
cherry trees right there,
Yeah, that's good. Cherry trees are nice.
they're pretty.
And then along the frontage of 51A on Mill Pond, they had done quite a bit of
Oh.
landscaping trees.
They
They did like
I think
four,
birch
the
cedar.
four birch.
Birch,
Yeah.
okay, those are gonna remain and stay as street trees.
And that's, you can kind of see in this picture.
Yeah.
It's a little tough, sorry, it was really foggy out, but there's like 4 or 5
Yeah, yeah.
birch trees that they planted right along
I
there.
remember, yeah.
So that's basically that page. So now we're looking at the end of the cul-de-sac for Center Circle.
Mhm.
And there were quite a few existing trees that were put
Yeah,
in
we
for
actually have
landscape.
existing trees over here. There is none here, but this is where the driveway is. It's actually right in the middle of the driveway up to the pump house. So you were saying we should put one here, and another one here. But we're okay with existing trees.
So along the frontage of lot 55A, it looks like,
55 and 56, we were good all the way up to here.
Yeah.
And then you wanted some in front of 57. Do you have the narrative, by any
Yes.
chance? Just to refresh my memory. So I took notes and then typed them up. And
Yeah.
sent them back. I believe it says 55 and 56 are okay. You need them in front of 57
Yeah.
as far as well as the access drive to
Yeah.
the well.
So this green one could just move a little over,
Yes,
Yeah.
pretty much.
and that's,
Yeah, and this one's sitting in the middle of the access drive, so it's gonna go
yeah.
by the parking spaces or something, left or right, either way, but.
So should this one be green then?
There's nothing here right now, there's a driveway right here going to the
Okay.
pump house, but there is a tree sitting right here already.
But there's, yeah, there's this one, so
Yeah.
this one really is kind of right here.
Yeah.
And then this one just needs to be moved right there, okay.
Yeah.
so the tree that's in front of the access to the
It's being
zone one.
counted by the one that's sitting right there on the corner of this property, which is what she was saying, because it's on the other side of the parking, there's one right here, the one
Yeah.
that we could barely see
Yeah,
from behind the other, so.
so are we gonna require a tree there, or no?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
Isn't there an electrical box there or something?
That was the other.
That's the other
cul-de-sac.
cul-de-sac. I was just thinking that, the
Yeah,
other
I was-
cul-de-sac.
Yeah, that's pond digging.
And then all the other trees that are shown on here, they're
Yep.
required to do.
Yep.
There's no
Yep.
change.
No issue with that.
A lot of changes on the page.
There were a fair amount of
We
trees
planted.
that are
There's lots of
planted,
birds
they've all been
planted, yeah.
planted.
As
Oh.
we built the
So
houses
it's
and
just-
landscaped them, we planted the street trees accordingly.
Okay.
So that's why you see a lot of,
Blue.
The blue, yeah, the green ones are just
Yeah.
where they just need to be
it
planted.
doesn't mean it's an old growth tree, it just
Yeah.
means it's a tree
Yeah.
gathering.
I got it, I got it.
Old growth.
Yeah, so all
So
the trees
these make
leading
sense.
up to Old Stone Circle, they were installed when the road was done.
Yeah.
So all of those are existing actual street trees. And
They've
then,
grown significantly since they were planted. I mean, they
Yeah, I was
started
gonna say
like
they're all
this
in
and
good
now
shape.
yeah, so the only ones that are, the ones that are changing on Mill Pond on this plan are the ones that are in front of 49, 50, and 51. Well, I guess just 49 and 50. Those are existing landscape trees,
They're
correct?
landscape trees, correct.
Yeah.
And then across the street at lot 20, there's one existing landscape tree that is,
Mhm. So this is all, yeah, okay.
yeah. And then all the existing trees down this side of the
They've
road
all
were
been
good.
cut.
They were old growth and
Those are-
new
yeah,
landscape
yeah.
trees.
So I believe that takes care of that page.
There's one in front of lot 25 that needed to be additional,
Yep.
right there.
Yeah, because we asked for one
And
between
a couple
the,
right here. Between the old growth with the open space sign and the guardrail, I believe there's 2 trees that need to be planted, which is,
These two.
I'm upside down, this is killing me, these 2 right here.
Okay.
so we
And
had
right
one,
here.
we had one green one here.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, then on the other
On the
side,
other
yeah.
side of it,
No, yeah,
so
yep,
From
and
where
then
the
one
old
on
growth
this
sign
side.
did and the guardrail
Yeah.
started.
and then nothing here.
Right.
And then we said that these will be fine.
And most of these are actual street trees that you guys.
Yeah.
Most of them are
Most
actual
of them,
trees that we
yeah,
planted on that
yeah.
road.
And
That's
that
what it is.
carries all the way through to the end of Old
Yeah.
Stone.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it.
The spacing may not be 70 on the dot. due to
But
driveway,
it's,
so
we looked at them, it's fine, yeah.
Okay, great, looks good.
Good.
So how does the board want to handle these changes? Do you want to do a record of vote, where you take a vote and you have it on?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a revised plan that, we can give to Fred, it probably makes sense to make a vote.
Take a vote. Okay, why don't I draft something for the next meeting then?
Okay.
Because I don't know exactly how the language would read.
I would love to be able to start planning these in the next 2 weeks if
That's fine.
possible.
You can start doing that.
We're good, I mean, I think we've got a plan, you're aware of the plan, I mean, just as soon as you make these small
I'll make
changes,
the small
email
changes,
it.
get it to Fred,
Fred,
and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
Or
So
you
they're
can
gonna
go
order
from
them
there.
still, so,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
but I need to make it count.
yeah, no, I think we're good with it.
Alright, we wanna talk berms now? We're looking on
We basically touched on it this morning and the planning board referred to whatever
Fred?
Fred had decided, so
Yeah.
that's where we're at, we don't need to discuss it
Okay.
further than that.
fine with that.
I'm sure Andy will say otherwise next
Huh?
time he's here.
Who?
I'm sure Andy will say something different next time he's here, but I have no reason to discuss it with you guys tonight.
Okay.
So you're on board with Fred?
On board as I can be.
And then what was your note? I had missed that part of the meeting about the berm, about the
Oh,
turn
there's one berm item, up at the cul-de-sac, the temporary cul-de-sac, up near lot 61, 62. Because of the grading, there won't be any berm on the uphill side, but
Correct.
where it's on the downhill side, we will install berm at
So,
lot 16.
looking at this, right along here, we said there would be
No
no
berm, but we will install the berm right here,
Yes.
on the downhill
And
side.
this is because the hill comes down, there's, you know,
There's
and
no
it's
way the water's
temporary.
going,
it's gonna be more disturbance to that property when
Correct.
it's a temporary.
Yeah, there's no reason to tear up the dirt, put permanent,
Yeah.
it's not gonna do anything at all,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, and then the last thing related to Century Mills, I just need Eric for you to sign. This is the record of vote for
We
the.
voted on
Do
this
we,
already.
do we need to make a, or are we good, we don't need to,
Vote on the berm on the cul-de-sac portion, just to
Uh,
have it on record, or?
I just wasn't sure.
Yeah, I think I can write up something for the next meeting. I think, because right now I don't think we have anything for the record, just to even have that as our sort of,
Okay,
you know, as part of the partial road acceptance, to use that temporarily.
so I'll make a motion to,
You wanna do it now? Can we do it at the next meeting? And that way
Sure.
I'll know the exact wording we need. I have to think
Okay.
about it.
all right, that's fine.
We are good with that, that is
Yes,
the going
that is
forward
the
plan?
plan.
Yes,
right,
that is
yeah.
the plan, yes.
Alright,
Do you
So,
need-
sorry, go ahead.
Do you need to, oh, you already wrote what was there?
Yeah, well, that was based on what you told me, so.
Yeah, yeah, 3-0, whatever. We put 2 absent or 3 absent? 2, I guess, right?
And then once I get this notarized, Andy will notarize and,
Okay.
report.
well, Christine's in on Monday, she's a notary, so I can get it done on
And
Monday.
then I'll need a copy back.
Do we have, do we have any update on easement stuff?
I wrote up some draft language and sent it to town council, so that's where I did that, I think, on Monday, so.
When do we expect to hear back?
I don't know, he didn't say,
Is
but
he-
he did respond and say he'll look at it, so.
You added essentially what we said.
Yeah, the only thing I forgot now, looking at it, I think I need to go back and just tell him that we also need to include sidewalk. I think I missed the sidewalk. The sidewalk needs to get.
Sidewalk here? We're
Once-
not installing
once-
sidewalk.
No, I know, but when phase 3 gets completed
Oh.
and they
Oh,
tear
the
this
sidewalk
section,
has to come
there'd
through,
be a,
it's
they
part of the
need
right
to
of way.
extend the sidewalk,
Yeah.
and I think I missed that. So I
Okay.
gotta add that in.
I wasn't here for the last meeting, I'm sorry.
That wasn't me, sorry.
It was a small group
It was
meeting.
a small group.
It was actually,
Wow.
it was a nice break.
Any comments from the audience on the Central Mill stuff? No? Okay. Thanks,
All
Fred.
Alright, this is
We're
a
good?
personal land speed record for me, Andrew.
Alright.
Have a great night.
Also, amazingly enough, we're right on schedule.
Look at that.
What happened to the streetlights? You guys were gonna talk about streetlights or not?
Is that on the agenda? Well,
It was signing the record of vote, you had taken your vote at the last meeting
Yeah.
for the lights.
so basically what we decided is that we didn't need streetlights internally at the intersection to the main road.
No, we did need it at the intersection to the main road.
That's what I said, right?
Oh,
Why?
Not the
Did I say-
internal intersection.
Not the internal intersections.
And you already voted on that.
last,
Yeah,
at the,
So wait,
Why
where are
did
there
you-
gonna be streetlights?
Yeah.
just at the
At the
intersection
main
to
entrance.
Because
Spectacle.
we've not had enough assault on our
Yeah,
lawns.
no.
No.
At
I
the,
Do you
want
want-
street light there.
No
Huh?
streetlight.
Under no circumstances.
No.
What, to the main road?
No,
Absolutely.
no streetlight.
the police and the fire have indicated that they,
No streetlight.
Uh-uh.
No streetlight.
it's the direction of the police and the fire.
Well, we need to
There's no
talk, we need to
streetlights.
talk to the police and fire. There has not been a streetlight there for how many years? We've got how many people driving in and out of there? Why do we need a streetlight?
It was told to us for public safety, for them. That's the only place that they wanted the streetlight, so that was the only place that was, we took everything
We
else
took it off, we took it out of the cul-de-sac, we took
Yeah.
it off the
Why wouldn't you
internal
want it on
intersections.
that cul-de-sac up onto their main road?
Huh?
Why wouldn't you want it, I mean, everywhere? Why wouldn't we want a streetlight on every main intersection?
There's not.
What is the significance of this particular roadway?
The
Because
spectacle
it's off the main road.
Yeah, it's off the main road.
So,
It's more of a main intersection than the internal ones, we felt. So in the plan.
all right, I live there, I do not want a streetlight. I do not want a streetlight at the end of that road.
There are no streetlights at the intersections of far more major roads in Bolton.
Then that one, exactly.
I mean, I think the only streetlights that really exist are the ones that intersect with 117, right? And there's maybe 85.
So I'm Phil Forney, 31 Spectacle Hill, we're at the bottom of that intersection. Our neighbors, the Goddards across the street at 32 Spectacle Hill, you're talking about putting that street light in our front yards that is gonna illuminate our yards. That doesn't seem fair, that doesn't seem right. And I don't think that should be done, because it interferes with our whole entire front yard, both of our houses. And I don't care if it's a direction of the police, if the planning board has a say in this, then they have to hear it from the abutters and the people who are gonna be affected by that. A streetlight in our front yard is gonna be very disturbing to our privacy.
Well-
It's
We didn't move to
mind-boggling.
Bolton to live with streetlights.
Like, is there a lighted Wheeler Road in South Bolton? I mean, that's a pretty dangerous intersection. If there's not one there, certainly shouldn't be one.
No,
No.
you could drive around this town, there are virtually no streetlights.
Well, I mean, it's
I don't
unfortunate.
even know what they look like.
It's unfortunate you guys didn't come out before. I guess we could add it back on the agenda, couldn't we?
Well, can I ask a question about?
I mean, it's not on today's agenda, to
Okay,
us
so,
discussing it, but,
a change like this
yeah.
that affects abutters
Yep,
to that streetlight,
yep.
isn't it common courtesy of a tax-paying member of this town that we get notification of a meeting that's gonna improve the streetlight in our front yard? Which I don't remember getting a notification of that, I'm just saying. So therefore, I didn't know that that was voted on, and therefore I'm hearing it for the first time.
Well, so the streetlights were part of the original plan from 10 years ago,
Yeah.
or whatever it was, which included the two colors
Including
Two-
multiple streetlights
Multiple
throughout the
streetlights.
subdivision.
and intersections internally. We stripped those all out and just, we didn't add any streetlights, we just left the only one.
Why did you strip them out elsewhere?
We didn't feel like they were necessary.
Okay. Well, I don't feel it's
And public
necessary.
safety didn't feel it was necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was mentioned that the residents at one of the hearings did not want to have streetlights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we reviewed that, we asked fire and police to weigh in on it. They said they were really only concerned with the one at the entrance, so that's why we removed all the rest of them, because it seemed that was what the abutters wanted.
I mean,
That's what
Therefore,
the
we're the
people that
abutters.
live
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
We're the abutters, and if we
Yeah,
don't have
that's
a
what-
voice in
Yeah, we-
saying this, then it's really upsetting.
I have no problem opening up this discussion again. We weren't necessarily on the agenda to discuss that. I didn't realize that there was this much angst for that light.
Against the light, is what you mean?
Yeah, well, there's much angst, yeah, in regard to that light.
Well, I'm surprised the police didn't tell you, because I've already had multiple conversations with them about it.
Yeah, they didn't tell us. I mean, I haven't really,
They didn't
this is the first I've heard this
suggest
much
that some
pushback
of
on
the
that
local
light.
people would be disturbed
Have you
by
got
that.
any emails or anything on it?
No.
So, I mean, we just haven't we haven't heard these complaints.
I had no idea it was gonna happen. Absolutely none. You
Well-
know, to me, that intersection was finished long ago with the little stone wall and the,
But it hasn't been accepted by the
Yeah,
town yet, so what they're trying to do
is
is
finish up everything.
finish up everything that was on the plans to get the town to accept the road. And as part of that, there were streetlights that were on the plan, so that's where they were coming.
And we waived all the other streetlights and just left them. I mean, I'm not against,
Well, for the
Going back-
same reason that
Yeah.
whoever lives internally to the division that said they didn't want a street light in their front yard is the same reason.
so I
that
don't think you said your name and.
My
where-
name's Margaret Campbell.
Oh,
I
you
live
did say
at
that.
5 Spectacle Hill Road.
So so that's,
I
where-
am not immediately abutting that, but the street light will be absolutely visible.
okay. Well, I mean, it's a downlight, right?
No, no,
There-
we do
there's-
not want
don't
nor
even-
need a street light
Right, okay.
on Spectacle Hill Road. We do not want nor need a street light in that location. Actually, there's been a lot of studies done at Rensselaer Polytechnical Institute on street lighting and the improvement or not to safety. And it is a misinterpretation that adding street lights improves safety at an intersection like that. That in fact, you actually see the cars coming better when there is no street light at that location at night, because you see
Okay.
you see the lights.
Well, it's not,
And
it's.
I also don't understand
Yeah.
how that particular intersection, as Joyce has said, is any different from any one of them.
They were on the
myriad
plan,
across
we
town.
wanted to strip them away, we asked DPW fire, which ones, they said strip them all away except for that one, that's kind of what we wanted.
And
We
so
heard no
now you're
complaints,
hearing
we
from
heard no
others,
complaints
yeah. Well,
otherwise.
we didn't know that you were discussing
Yeah,
this.
I have no problem
Okay.
going back to them and asking, saying residents are against it,
Yeah, we can do that, I mean,
yeah.
I'm happy to have some conversations with them.
I'm
happy
just
to
concerned that
do
they're gonna
research.
have the same comment over again, and we're gonna be in the same place at our next meeting, so I guess
What do you mean, who's gonna have the same comment over again?
the DPW and
Fire.
police and fire are all gonna say, no, we need that light for public safety reasons, and
So
we're
why
in the
does the
same place.
DPW have any kind of ruling on whether we put a street light there or not?
Because it
We're
was,
just now plowing, street sweeping, and they maintain the roads,
Okay.
so.
So 95% of our intersections have no street light, but DPW thinks it's really important for snow removal?
Well, so in the current subdivisions, that's what we have been doing. With Tadmore, we did the same thing. We just left the streetlight at the main intersection. That's kind of what we've been doing.
Yeah.
We haven't heard much pushback
So,
except for
I
now,
guess it's
so,
time the planning board hear
yeah.
that there are a few residents that live along Spectacle Hill Road that are subjected to over 10 years of construction on the largest subdivision that this town ever was going to see, ever will see.
Mhm.
I think we've really been subjected to enough abuse.
We didn't know we were
Visual-
abusing you.
No, not you, but.
I'm saying with this light thing. It's just we haven't heard, we
It
didn't,
is, it's a.
we hadn't heard
it's an added
complaints. I don't
assault.
wanna belabor it tonight. We'll
Okay.
add it on the agenda. We'll add it on the agenda for our next meeting.
Okay,
And we'll go back and we'll say there's some complaints and see what they say. Sound good?
that's good.
This is another comment.
Dusty Sheldon, 63 Spectacle Hill Road. So, the answer that came, I would imagine, if I were put in the position of the police and fire, I would have said that, as opposed to removing them all, I would have said, oh yeah, okay, we'll just leave one, because it was on the original plan. You see what I'm saying? They were only given the choice of get rid of them all in the subdivision or keep the one at the end. They were not, I would imagine, not given the opportunity to say, oh yeah, we don't need them at all.
oh no, we had asked if we could have, all of them.
Zero.
Eliminate all, yeah.
Yeah.
How do we get one down at the end of South Bolton Road and Century Mill Road, where which is a heck of a lot more important at night than it is at the foot of Spectacle Hill Road?
Well, I mean,
Well,
this,
that's outside.
That's only
that's outside the
my.
project, and this
Yeah.
is at the cost of the developer to install and everything, so. I mean, yeah, we'll add it to the agenda.
does
Does the
that-
board agree with?
No, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
My only question was, is there was a vote that was done, was it 2 meetings ago?
Last meeting?
Um,
Do you want to just sign? Yeah.
I can find out whether we rescind it or we just take
Okay.
another vote, either
Okay,
way,
if
we'll,
you- yeah.
we'll fix it.
Okay,
so.
that would be.
It's not like it's a town meeting vote.
No, it's a minor
Yeah.
modification.
Yeah, no,
I'm
I
so
just-
sorry, I'm sorry.
That's all I was just
Minor
curious.
modifications.
Okay.
Where are the minutes from the previous meetings posted?
Yeah, so,
Oh, Kathy wrote it 37
Yeah.
Foothill Road.
it was like 3 of us, and for some reason the camera wasn't here. So I have notes and I'll write them up.
How many
Sorry.
meetings have there been since, because it seems like it's been a while since any have been posted, or?
The minutes, no, we have minutes for every meeting. They just haven't been
They're only
posted
in
online.
draft form, yeah.
Yeah. We've approved some from this past year.
From 2018, nothing from 2019,
No.
I just haven't had a chance, so.
So
Working on it.
basically the process is Erica types up the minutes, she gives them to us, we approve them, and then they
I can
immediately.
post it on, I post them on the website.
We're just really behind in minutes. Every single meeting is available streaming, you can watch the entire meeting. You can go and see all our agendas, and you can go and watch the entire meeting, they're all available to be seen. So you can bump our views from 3 to 4, or whatever. But they're all there.
I have a question. William Stevens, 37 Spectacle Hill Road. Yeah, I would think you might want to inform the butters to anything that you're making plans for, rather than having everybody come up and being surprised that something was voted for that affects their lives. And the butters.
So the overall plan did have a public hearing 10 years ago, which is what we're working off. This is such long development. When we have minor modifications, if we deem it minor, it doesn't need a public hearing, correct? It's on the agenda, it gets discussed publicly, and just the board needs to vote. By it, if it's not a public hearing, though, we don't have to send out notices to all the butters.
Well, today, for instance, there's going to be the next item. There's a lot of abutters to that, and none of us were notified about it.
Yeah, so that's not a public hearing, they're just here for comments, correct? The permit granting authority for that, since it's a 40B, is the ZBA, and when they have their public hearing, all the butters will get notices in the mail.
So butters within 300 feet will be notified by
Well,
email.
it seems like your approval of this
We're
is
not
sort
Approval of what's this?
Aren't you giving approval or disapproval of the plan to forward it to the state? Isn't that the purpose of it?
No, we're just, we're actually hearing the plan for the first time.
Yeah, and then what do you do?
So, I could just say what we've done on Still River. We got the plan, we reviewed it, we discussed it, we made a list of comments, issues we had with it, and we made an overall recommendation to the ZBA whether they should approve or disapprove the project.
But with no input from the people who are being affected by it?
Yeah, no, there were people here, I mean, it's a
But
public
you're
meeting.
not telling the people who are affected?
It's not a so public hearing is when it's the open town meeting process. If it's an official public hearing, it has to be in the papers over
14 days prior.
14
to the
days
meeting.
before the meeting, and all the butters need to be notified. Just a standard, public meeting, the agenda needs to be up 48 business hours, 2 business days beforehand. And we only discuss what's on the agenda. That's kind of why earlier in the meeting, I let somebody say something, but it wasn't on the agenda, so we didn't really discuss it. And this topic about the lights wasn't necessarily, I guess,
You were talking
tangentially
about
was.
light, you were talking about
Well,
those
the only-
lights
the
in the earlier thing,
the-
fairy lights.
No, the only thing we discussed about the lights is that I was just supposed to sign the thing. I mean, I think that's what it said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
I mean, we had the discussion and vote last. Yeah, I mean, I understand this is all confusing and there's a million things going on. But yeah,
So I would just like to add too, what
Yeah.
I would recommend, on the town's website, you can e-subscribe, and then that way you can be notified when agendas come available on the website, and then that way you can check it, and if there's a topic that you're interested in, you can attend. I always recommend that to anyone that reaches out to me that says, why am I not being notified? That's a great way to keep, stay up to date with what the boards are reviewing.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
yeah, so you get email if you just want the planning board's agendas, every time they're released, they'll get emailed to you. Or ZBA or any board.
You know
Board
what,
something.
I mean, I just will say this, I think what's happened is, since we don't really have a town newspaper anymore, it's very easy to not be informed. And I'm someone who never drives down 117, so if you're
Yeah.
putting anything out on that white sign, you know,
Yeah,
you
it's,
there was a lot more information available when we had.
well,
Bolton
it's
Independent.
unfortunate, when the Bolton Independent, when they,
Yeah.
now we're in the back of Stowe's Independent, and it's paid, so many people didn't pick up the subscription, whereas when you turned over that first page, it would show all the public hearings.
Yeah,
We don't have a town paper, I mean, so we put it on the website, but, and I don't think that,
So I typically advertise in the Clinton IM because it's significantly cheaper and it is considered a newspaper in circulation in this town, so.
but still, people might not
No, I
subscribe.
know, but
Yeah.
just so that everyone's aware, that's the paper I typically.
But I think the best solution is what Erica said, is you can subscribe to whatever board, you know, it's list all of them, and you
On the
can,
agendas.
yeah. Okay, I think we're,
Eric,
yeah,
can I make a comment?
sure,
Kate Bayuk, 53 Wheeler. I'll just say for people who are interested in the Century Mill development or the one that we're talking about in South Bolton, if anybody wants to be on the South Bolton Community Group page, we actually discussed some of this stuff, so there actually are notices about meetings and
yeah.
that sort
Okay.
of stuff that's of interest to South Bolton people.
Okay. Somewhere I got shuffled in all these papers. Can I see this? All right, are we done with, everything then? Well, so we'll add on, we'll add the intersection light on the next
Back to
agenda.
the next meeting.
All right, so next up, we have James Moran to present to us Mallard Lane, a 40B development on South Bolton Road. A comprehensive permit site approval application has been submitted, so.
Good evening. Please get some handouts.
There's too much shuffling of my stuff. I sit here adjusting everything, then I can never find it.
Thank you for allowing me this time tonight. Please get a handout. I know you have some of the other information.
This isn't anything, right? This is.
Thank you.
I do have a blow-up of the site so everybody can see it.
Yeah, do you have an easel or?
I do have an easel, but I could just make sure everybody can see it, and then people can pass it around if they want, I don't mind.
Maybe stand it up right there so people can come up, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
There we go. People see this?
Obstructed view.
So again, directly, my name is Jim Warren. I'm an owner developer. I have a property in Bolton called Lot Zero. So what we did is we assembled a development team to go through the comprehensive permit. On that team is myself. I'm the owner developer. I have 20 years' experience working on environmental issues and construction issues. We're collaborating with Ducharme and Dillis, they're a good local firm. So they have over 30 years of engineering and planning experience. And then I have a team consultant, his name is Jim Herrick, he's a PE. He has over 25 years of experience doing civil engineering. So what we're here to discuss, obviously, the comprehensive permit, site application. If you look at this view, it's also known as Lot Zero, but it's formerly owned by the Bonazzoli family. It was a storage gravel yard back probably 60s or 1950 something. Up until recently, when we purchased, my wife and I purchased the property, they were storing stuff on that property. The Bonazzoli family was. When we bought it, they did, I believe 2 weeks before we bought it, they did remove a lot of the stuff, not all the stuff. So that's bringing up to speed now that we own it. We've been trying to clean it and prepare it back to what we think is as close as natural state as we could get it. So the next one is just a locus map. It shows the somewhat odd configuration of the lot. and where it positions itself along South Bolton Road,
What's the frontage?
273 feet. So some of the project details, we're proposing a 600-foot private way. We hopefully are gonna call it Mallard Lane. And it'll have a cul-de-sac at the end of it. What we're trying to put there would be 11 aged-in-place, single-story, two-bedroom homes. 3 homes will be priced at a non-market rate, with 8 homes being priced at a market rate. The approximate size of the homes will be 2,000 square feet. They will be detached. They'll have 2.5 baths and also have 2-car garage. They're gonna be constructed in such a way where there'll be all truss roofs. So if somebody wants to age in place, they'll be able to. There'll be no bearing walls on the interior. Also, each structure will be very handicap accessible. It'll all be one floor. And again, no bearing walls, so if somebody needed to convert it for handicap purposes, they'd be able to do so very easily. So if you look at the timeline, it's back in November 2017. Back in 2017, my wife and I purchased the property. We started meeting with the town departments back in March 12, 2018. We had a public meeting at the Zoning Board of Appeals back on March 20th, 2018. We've had several discussions with conservation, planning, the town, all the boards up until this point. On April 1st, 2019, we applied for a concept permit with Mass Housing. April 18th, Mass Housing did come out with a site visit, and Mike Busby came out from Mass Housing, and all the town department heads were there. And then we're here tonight on April 24th, 2019, and then on April 25th, which is tomorrow night, we make a similar presentation to the Board of Selectmen. So I've been asked in my travels, I do live in Bolton, and I bump into people at my son's sporting events and stuff like that, and they ask me, why do I think? And I refer to a conversation I had with Erica and other town officials, that there is definitely a need for this type of development in town. It will diversify our housing stock currently. It'll allow existing homeowners that want to downsize and stay in the town. It'll give them some type of vehicle to do that. Again, it's going to be age-targeted housing, which allows the homeowners to age in place. Bolton is an AARP community with a limited supply of the proper housing. And this will also potentially free up some single-family homes for other families to move to Bolton. If you look at this next picture, it's a concept home that we hope to achieve. Again, the roof lines, those are what we call false dormers. It will be all single story. If you look at the floor plan on the next slide, it does comment on a 3-bedroom, but the bedroom in the front would be converted to an office. So there'd be what we call a 2+ bedroom dwelling. And that's it.
I have a missing page.
Oh, sorry
So
about that.
so do I, so.
Oh, do you? Which page is missing?
We should get together.
I have an extra page.
I think I have an extra page too. I have 2 comprehensive, is that a page you're
I see
missing?
mine
have
from
two
one
timeline
time.
Is the page you're missing?
No,
I was missing
I'm
the
timeline.
I was
No,
missing
I have
this
an
one.
extra time.
Oh, I have.
You got my page.
Yeah, here. There you go.
Thanks. All right, I'm whole now. I don't know about you guys.
There you go, Mark.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The shuffle is on, thank you.
Alright.
Martha, I see you, just wondering, okay. So approximately 2,000 square feet, 2.5.
Can I just ask in the timeline, when you said you, and I apologize if I missed it, but did you actually meet with the design review board?
No, we agreed on the zoning board of appeals. Zoning board of appeals back in 2018 had asked us if we were willing to meet with them, and we said yes.
So you're planning to meet with them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Alright.
haven't
I was
scheduled
gonna say, I
that
don't
yet.
remember seeing it.
No,
Okay.
they've asked us, the zoning board of appeals, we went to that meeting, deliberately say, are you willing to go? You
Okay.
don't have to, we said we wanna go.
Okay.
I mean, if you look at the structure, the design of it is to be, have a nice village feel and to, you know, you'll have hardy siding and stuff like that.
So for,
All 11 are the exact same floor plan?
Yeah.
so.
Well, not the same exact, the rooms will change a little bit, but they'll fit in this footprint, all these footprints.
So we had an issue, so you're saying there's gonna be 3 affordable,
Yeah.
and for them to count towards the inventory, I know when we were doing the cottage overlay, they had an issue with not allowing, so you're allowing kids, you just want, at least one of the residents needs to be over 55, is that what you're saying?
The owner needs to be over 55, my understanding from Mass Housing.
Yeah, so as long as the owner's over 55, you know, and I think what we talked about is, we might have been off base by not allowing kids, because this type of development, is, well, it's more than a condo, I mean, it's 2 bedrooms, so you could still get kids, but.
Yeah, we checked with Mike Busby, and he did confirm that the affordable units will count against the town overall count.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
And Mike likes to use the term age targeted.
yeah,
So they're designed in which a way that would attract a person who wants single floor living, you know,
yeah.
in easy access as they get older, to
Yeah.
get around their home and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Well, so, if anybody's ever watched meetings, they know that I definitely agree that we need housing diversity in town, and we need a more progression of, we need over 55 housing, we need more elderly housing, I mean, we need a lot more than 4,000 or 5,000 square foot, single-family homes. So I like that aspect of it. We can work through the other issues after. Let me just, there's a couple of hands up, let me just, Martha?
Martha Remington, I live at 447 Main Street. I've been here 40 years. As far as street addresses go, where is this proposed project?
We're,
On South Bolton Road.
Do you have a locust map blow up? Or no?
yeah, it's right there.
What are
I-
the street addresses? I don't want lots.
Oh, it doesn't-
I don't
it
want
doesn't say.
parcels.
Well, it doesn't, it is only known, according to the Bolton assessors, as lot
Yes.
0.
I'd
Do you know
like to know
this one?
what street addresses this is between or near.
It's right next to the
Yeah, thank you.
Bonazzoli property.
It's the
The
former,
Bonazzoli
Which-
house.
the white,
Bonazzoli property.
Peter's old house.
he, for many years, he had a sign up that you might have recognized. It was the Bonazzoli pump property. He did pumps and stuff like that, he troubleshooted.
So it's near Wheeler Road?
Yes,
South
correct.
Bolton
It's
Road.
it's right behind the
On
white
the
cape.
southeast or the northwest corner?
So this is
Southeast.
Near
Wheeler,
Hog
right?
Swamp?
Southeast.
Yes.
Northeast.
So,
So as you go down, you turn down Spectacle, South Bolton Road, Wheeler is on the
Right.
northwest. And
Before you
this
get to Wheeler.
proposed
Before you
is
get to Wheeler, on the left.
on the north side or the south side?
So,
south
South
side,
side.
south side.
Thank you so much.
It's the old sand pit. Bonazzoli's old sand pit.
The flooded pothole.
Ryan Litchwell, 360
Where
South
do you
Bolton
live?
Road.
Up here?
I've got a bunch of questions that, from this conversation so far, is now the appropriate time
Where's
to
Wheeler?
ask them, or do you want to wait?
I had a few questions.
Yeah, I might,
Down here.
I'll come back to you, but I let the board, you know.
What are
Because maybe they'll
the,
get answers for you.
what are the, I see you've got it on the aerial, but what are the, are there environmental resources on the site that you are within?
There is a, what we call, right at this point, it's a water feature. When I talked to conservation from town, what had happened, if you look at this location right here, this green line here.
It's a wetland.
Well, we don't know yet, we're trying to determine that
Okay.
between the town and ourselves, and I have a wetland expert working on it.
Okay.
What had happened over the years, you could see that Bonazzoli had gravelled this area and pulled it down to the water table. It's non-hydraulically connected to anywhere else.
It's isolated.
It's isolated, and it's a certain size, it's just under 10,000 square feet, and it does dry up. So we're trying to, what we did with conservation up to this point, as of last week, we filed what we call a request for determination of applicability. Also, I know the Conservation Department is trying to notify this homeowner to go out and view to see if it could be a certified vernal pool. So, with all that in mind, what we did way from the beginning to take it to the farthest extreme, because I'm an environmental person, I like the environment, we took everything outside the 100-foot buffer. There's no structures or anything. The only thing that's within the 100-foot buffer is an existing gravel road that we would hope to use to not disturb any other trees or anything like that. This road here, as shown, depicted on the plan, is, a majority of that is existing, and it has been there probably since 1970.
Are there any, is it in the floodplain at all?
No.
Outside the
No.
floodplain?
And it is all sand and gravel, so we will
Okay.
have excellent recharge. And our hopes is we are working, what was mentioned at the meeting, through mass housing and stuff like that, as I was talking to the DPW director, and we're hopeful to fix that flooding that happens on that belly right now. There is actually a leach and catch basin. No. There's some flooding that happens here periodically, and the town, DPW, they do the best they can, but they go out and put a sign up. What we're hoping to do is, there's an existing basin that's been there, probably 1970 again, about, ideally it should drain across the road. Right now, it reaches a certain elevation and then spills across the crown of the road. It's creating a lot of erosion right in here, creating a very dangerous situation. The trees are being uprooted in this area, and there's some very large oak trees. So with the plan as we move forward, we'll be collaborating with Ducharme, and Ducharme's already been in contact with the DPW director. They're working on a plan. I'm guessing, don't quote me on this, but I think they're also working on the other flooding situation at the same time. So they're trying to address all of that at one time. I told them I would offer any help I could give them.
So you haven't done septic plans and all
Well,
that?
they have proposed.
We've done several test holes.
Yeah.
We wanted to know what was there.
Where's groundwater?
Very deep, more than 12 feet. It is truly an old gravel pit.
So it's got really good percolation?
Yeah, it's all sand and gravel. I mean, we went out there with two different size machines, a Cat 314 and a Cat 303. The 303 digs to 10 feet, the Cat 314 digs for at least 14 feet. We didn't hit any water.
Okay.
We've done a series of test holes over the last year and a half all over. Probably in excess of 40 test holes.
And where are you looking for the well? Where are you doing?
There'll be 3 different wells proposed here. We're gonna be dividing the land, I believe. Again, Ducharme's working on that, into 3 potential lots. Each well would service roughly, this well is here, would service these 3 units, this septic would service these 3 units. Then this well would service these 4 units. This
Now, why are you dividing lots just for,
There's some loading issues and stuff like that, and some water supply issues.
But why do you need to divide up the land? Is that for like, the condo fee type thing? So
Yeah,
like
there's some of that,
four
but-
units are associated with one unit, 4 units associated with another unit?
Right, and it regarding to the water supply situation that you would have when you do a development like this.
Okay.
It's just, Ducharme's telling me it's necessary, the way to do it.
What are you doing stormwater mitigation for the?
Yeah, we'll be doing recharge units, Caltex, on all the roof leaders. And then Ducharme's gonna be doing obviously they have to do a stormwater study and plan and recharge it. We're
Okay.
doing, Seth was talking about doing a large recharge unit in here for the roadway.
How does the grade work on this site?
The grade,
Where's it high on?
I'll show you, I get an existing plan, just bear with me for a second. Ducharme has conducted an existing conditions plan already. And this was part of the application that we submitted to the town already. If you take a look at the lay of the land, like we were talking about, if you look at this existing road, this was all gravelled out over the time. So there's a steep slope at the pinnacle of the land. It goes down 25 feet. It slopes this way, as you can see by the topo, about 22 feet. And this area here is level. There are some stockpiles that Bonazzoli or somebody pushed up to perform some type of privacy barrier, I believe, where they just must have, with a dozer or something, piled it up. I've got some slash in here that I eventually like to clean up. He did leave what we call a lot of slash and piles around.
So you're doing some major earthwork here now,
No.
right?
Yes.
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 Oh, yes,
Yes, at all hours of the night, yeah.
Hold on, we'll get to the audience.
Since 1970.
No, I guess what I was just referring to, so
If we go move forward with.
with the, like, where the houses are
Right, the
here.
only cut we'll have, and I'm working with Seth right now, is right in here, for these units here. Everything else will go near grade. So the cul-de-sac will sit roughly in here, so these homes, excuse
But you
me.
got a 20-foot cut. Are you gonna?
No, over here will be like a 10-foot cut. What I talked about with the fire department at this meeting is I would love to take the road and bring it up here, so I don't have to cut, bring it back down and loop it around. But
There's
Seth.
gonna be some steep grades, I don't know.
No, I think we can do it, but I gotta talk to Seth, you know, talk to the team, as they say, and see what we could do. Cause I asked the fire chief how wide the road would have to be to do that. Cause what I wasn't psyched with is I didn't like a hunk of pavement there. So what some of the design things we thought about was to put like a gazebo in the middle, some green space, and then the fire department said, no gazebo, but we could have green space, cause if they wanted to cut across the cul-de-sac. So what we're contemplating right now is come in with the road, come up a little bit so we don't have to cut that much, so these units would sit up higher and then come down. But all these units down here will be near grade. And then the grade comes up here, as you can see from the road, then levels off, comes there, and then there's a little, kind of a low spot right in here. And then this comes up a little bit here, and then it's all together there. It's all kind of
Yeah.
level there.
It's still a fair amount of earthwork, but. The road's at 347 roughly.
Yep.
So the road's a lot lower, so you're kinda high here, and then you've got,
Yeah, it levels off, and we will have a great buffer from the street. If you look at this site over here, the first one in, so if this is 40 scale, so about 80 feet. So the first unit sits 80 feet back from the road, and that one's about 60 feet back from the road. And then when you get in here, them being also, one of the things Mass Housing liked about the development is it's single story. So as you put these in here, you can see there's no real direct wires, we're not along the property line.
What's the, it's 50 feet from the lot line, right?
Front yard setback, yeah.
What type of variances, to our normal zoning are you gonna need? Not that you need variances, but like, what would be variances?
No, we don't need a lot of them actually, but we do need some. So in the application for a comprehensive permit that we did submit, there's a table of variances in here.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Again, this was done by Seth from Duchamp.
Do you know where it is?
I know in the application, I know it's item 13,
did we get that?
section
I don't know that
3.
I printed out the waiver list for you.
Oh,
I'm not sure if it's in there.
we just have,
You have the
we have the
application.
comprehensive.
You just have the application.
I don't think they have that section.
Oh, well, can you send it? I guess,
Yeah.
can you walk us?
Yeah,
through it?
come on. So, you know, obviously minimum lot area is 80,000 square feet, we have less than 80,000.
Yeah.
What is it?
Minimum lot frontage is 200, we have less than that. Minimum front setback is 50, he's saying we're gonna have 50. Minimum side setback's 20, we have 10
Where's it 10?
on the nearest unit.
So less than
That's
80
not
on the
10
lot
feet on
size,
that
what is the
scale.
lot size? We know it's less, but what is it?
I'm sorry, you guys can't just, everybody can't shout out, I'm gonna have to call on you. I'll definitely call on everybody in the audience.
Well,
Probably this unit here, unit 7, is from this lot line here. So it'd be an internal
But
lot
that's an
line.
internal lot
So
line.
this is an.
Those are interior lot
I
lines.
still don't understand, for the 40B purpose, why you need these 3 lots.
Where you make
They
it,
all do them. I believe it's
Do
the
they?
water supply issue.
I believe it's a water supply issue.
Okay.
Because even though it's common ownership, it doesn't count as a public water supply.
Well, it
That's
depends on how
correct.
DEP weighs in.
Yeah.
They've weighed in recently
Right,
differently.
if
So
you're the
I don't
same
know.
owner-
It's DEP's
Yeah,
jurisdiction.
it's the same owner, so
Yeah,
Yeah,
normally that would.
But
that
typically-
doesn't count.
You know,
But
you can't divide it this way for septic, so why would you be able to do it for?
Yeah.
But they do allow septics like this,
No, they allow septics like this, but they
as
don't.
long as it's on,
but
on its own lot.
But it still hits the 10,000 gallon
Right.
limit.
Yeah, but this
No,
whole
no,
loading is
no.
only 2,000
No,
gallons.
but the
Right.
point is that splitting it into separate lots doesn't impact that 10,000. Why
Yeah.
would it affect
Correct.
the public
Well,
water
it
supply?
would, and the issue
Yeah.
that everybody's trying to wrestle with here, to be honest with you, like if you take in a subdivision, right? It's one piece of land, and as the lots get parted off, it's still, as you develop that subdivision, before you do the purchase and sale, it's still under joint ownership. This is what the state's struggling with also. So when these get parted off, they will be under different ownership, like Mallard Lane A, Mallard Lane B Trust, Mallard Lane C.
I know another
And that-
development in town that looked into, and I didn't think it worked that way. Because you're the same, I mean,
It does, and we gotta go through the process, so we'll be applying for the applicability under DEP's
I understand it's
regulations.
different under 40B, but,
No, not that issue, it isn't though.
yeah.
No, it isn't though. But that's an interior lot line, 10 feet to answer your question. right
Okay.
there.
Well, I guess the exterior lot lines,
Um,
it looks like you're over 20
Yep.
on all of them.
And the other thing we're able to achieve is one of the things the fire department asked us way back when, is actually 20 feet between the structures. They wanted that for fire safety
Yeah.
reasons.
I'm sorry, there's
Yeah.
what,
20 feet,
between the structures?
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, when we did the cottage overlay, we were asking for at least 20.
Yeah.
All right, let's bang through some questions from the audience.
Can I just look at that,
Yeah.
table?
Martha?
Thanks.
Martha Remington, 447 Main Street. Before we look into this development, how is the flooding at Spectacle Hill Road and South Bolton Road being solved? That's from the Century Mill Estates project.
Can you speak on that, Erica? I know that there is a design in place to, and then they're working on that.
Yeah, so Chairman Dillis has been contracted through DPW to do a design and improvements to that area. I don't know the details, Martha, of that design yet. I don't know how far along in that process they are.
And where is the flooding in relation to this development?
At the intersection of Spectacle Hill and South Bolton Road.
And
Just
also right beside
and
it.
also-
North, just east of this proposed project.
Just,
Two different roads.
Yeah, I'll show you. I have a map.
I'm also-
Okay, thank you.
Although I do wonder about,
state your name and,
sorry, Margaret Campbell, 5 Spectacle Hill Road. I live at the flood, and the one of the many questions I have here is the wetlands that exist behind all of our houses here that this development is encroaching upon. And they're being stated as being, isolated and not connected. I am not confident about that. The flooding now comes down from Century, it's always come down the hill, but it's, as we all know, the volume is a problem. So it's coming down to Spectacle Hill, and it goes to the back of my house, to the pond that is, it's actually visible on the
Spectacle Hill Pond.
do you mind coming to point what house,
Yeah,
what
so
lot
just
yours?
so I can-
Margaret, you know what? This may help you also. That's your pond.
Oh, yeah.
That's my pond. That's the wetlands across the
Yeah.
Just so we know.
So
what we're
there's,
talking about. So here's the
So-
development, where are you?
yeah, there's the development.
Okay.
I'm right here. That pond is behind
this-
my house.
this-
Okay.
Yeah, this
And then
one?
this is,
This one?
no,
And
this isn't,
This is my neighbor.
yeah,
This is the pond behind my house. That's my house.
Yeah.
This is Spectacle Hill.
Mhm.
This is where you wanna put a light, and why I don't want a light, and don't feel there's needed for one. It's not been there
Okay,
for all
let's
these
move
years.
on.
Is, is
point
is
noted.
this
That-
here?
That's this.
I was just gonna say, so-
And
Right.
this, all these wetlands shown here, and, there's no reason for me to believe that this doesn't empty out this way
Well, it looks
and
like it's
come back.
hydraulically
Okay,
connected
to
this
there,
way.
that way.
So
Is that-
this is the innie, this is the outie.
Oh, okay, so this
It's
is
not an outie.
discharging into here.
This is a hill, this is
Okay.
Spectacle Hill. It's all coming down here and into my pond and out this way and then across the
It
road.
doesn't go that way.
Yes.
So,
It-
Phil,
Well, I don't know that you know that.
Okay,
How do you know that?
I'm an expert at this.
okay,
Oh,
can I?
you're,
Yeah,
I didn't,
I'm a soil scientist licensed by the state of Massachusetts,
okay.
okay? So this pond, if anything, if the water's to leave here, it was probably over many years ago, this was probably impounded, I'm talking probably 80, 100 years ago when they built this road. So it's landlocked and it's leaching. It doesn't leave anywhere else unless on a high flood situation, it's gonna wanna go this way. This is the closest wetland that's down gradient.
No, it's not going this way, it's going out back. That's the lowest point. It's not coming up here. This is much higher than back here. Back to this wetland back here. Anyway, so that's where, you know, I am concerned, absolutely concerned about this water, if it overflows, that it be able to get out the.
Well, I don't think they're gonna be able to touch this, so this is outside their property.
Well, unless they already have, which I don't know, because they've been back there
Oh.
working with heavy equipment in the middle of the night. So,
Yeah. But, so this isn't gonna get touched, cause this is outside their property.
That's correct, it's not on the property.
I think this one. But my understanding is you're working within the buffer zone.
You're working, yeah.
No, not working within the buffer zone. Any clearing we did or anything we touched, any piles we removed that Bonzola left for us, I actually have a whole line of slash I would like to go, but I'm not gonna touch that yet until I talk to
Oh, I
conservation.
meant proposed, I'm sorry, I meant
Oh, yeah,
proposed.
proposed.
Your proposed are your,
This is the 100-foot buffer from that.
Right, so you see that small section of existing
Yeah.
road that we're hoping to reuse.
Yeah.
We didn't create that road,
They
that
would
road's
go
been
within the
there.
buffer area of the wetland.
Yes. So this is the you're
So-
saying this is the existing road,
Is
right?
that,
Correct.
is that typical that we allow roads to go in the buffer area?
yeah, I mean, that's jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, but they are allowed, yes.
Again, we did
But
not build that road.
so when, but you have to go in front of the Conservation
We
Commission.
will, yep.
Correct?
Yeah, like I said earlier, we officially filed with conservation already, what we call a request for
You just did
determination.
an RDA,
Yep, that's all we could do.
you didn't need to do an NOI?
Phil Fournier, 31 Spectacle Hill Road, and all due respect to an owner of a property who's owned it for a year and a half. Who have lived on that property for 30 years. We can speak more to that existing waterway, which is likely a vernal pool, which the road abuts, in which they have expanded the road to get their heavy equipment in. That is don't shake your head, because I've lived in that house for 30 years. It's existing water.
Talk to us. Okay.
It's existing water, it doesn't like come and go. It's right on the edge of the road, this is right here, and we live right here. So when he makes a comment that's not full of water year-round, I've been there for 30 years and I know it has. So that's one thing. The existing road that has been there for as long as we've lived there.
You're talking about the driveway?
It's a driveway.
The existing road that he says was an existing road was a small path. To get heavy equipment in and off his equipment, he's expanded that road and made it more of a road, which is abutting that piece of, that water on our property. So you just have to be careful what words are said at a meeting with somebody who might not know the history of that property. That's all I ask, in good faith, to have a developer operate in good faith.
I would just like to comment on that, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you look at the Oliver, Mass GIS Oliver,
Yeah.
you can go on since 1990, you can clearly see all those roads and their sizes.
Okay.
Since-
But on MassGIS, Oliver, it's flagged as a wetland?
I don't know that. I didn't,
This looks like it's printed. because
it's
it
called
says
WS1, but it
which-
doesn't qualify. When you do the red face test to it is a wetland or not, like I told you. It's under
I'm not a
10
wetland scientist,
No,
so
but
I'm just asking.
I explained it, it's under 10,000
Yeah.
square feet, it's fed by groundwater, and those are the two criteria, and it's not hydraulically connected.
Well,
But we-
it may be
we-
hydraulically connected to the pond immediately behind my house.
Okay, but we have hired
Well-
another expert who's independent. He is hired by us, Norse Environmental, Steve Erickson, who will be going before Conservation to file an RDA. The RDA has been filed, is my understanding.
The RDA was filed?
Yes,
I'm sorry, when was that filed?
probably last week or beginning of this week.
So when are you on the hearing for the Concom?
Not the next meeting, but the meeting in, is it the end of May, I believe?
Okay.
That's the conservation?
So,
Yeah.
as you have concerns with regard to the wetland issues, the Conservation Commission hearing would be a great hearing to go to, because they have jurisdiction over anything within wetland boundaries within 100 feet. That's their kind of jurisdiction, what can go in and what can go out, and whether this is a wetland, whether it's not, that's where that won't be made here.
It's determined there.
That
Well,
would
it's a
be
variance that's going to allow that.
And it's not a variance if it's, if you are allowed to do work within a buffer zone. The question, I think that's being, correct me if I'm wrong, is he's questioning whether it actually is a wetland. The Concom would be the ultimate determination to determine whether that's a wetland or not in the appropriate buffer zone. Or if there's a vernal pool, then that even goes to the, natural heritage and stuff like that. But just,
If you look at the mapping, it's not on national heritage, there's no endangered species in that pool area. We had to file that, we already had to do that. I mean, it's-
but I was just gonna let you know, as another hearing, to just, if you were, sounds like at the end of May, there'll be a Concom hearing, Conservation Commission hearing too.
William Stevens, 37 Spectacle Road. I'm sort of curious, evidently the Bolton bylaw states if your pond does not have fish in it, then it's automatically considered a vernal pool, even if it isn't certified as a vernal pool. And they have a definition, vernal pool, confined basin depression that, at least in most years, hold water a minimum of 2 continuous months, and so on and so forth. So that goes completely against what he's stating here, doesn't it? And on the Bolton map for what is wetlands, both of those ponds are included in as wetlands and pools.
So there's a couple of
Also, a
different.
seasonal stream
Okay.
through our property that goes right up against the property lines as
So
well.
there's a couple of different things to keep in mind. One is, conservation is the one who would determine whether it's a vernal pool. And that's what they're experts in, and that, and we defer to them on all of that. The other thing is where this is a 40B, they may or may not, the ZBA may or may not hold them to town regulations as opposed to state regulations.
Yeah, they have to comply with the state.
They have to comply with the state, the ZBA may or may not waive certain local regulations. So the 40B process gets very convoluted, because we're reviewing the project, we'll be providing planning board feedback to the ZBA. Conservation will be doing the same thing. They'll also be responsible for agreeing with the wetland flagging and that sort of thing. Ultimately, it's the ZBA who will go through all of the requested waivers, all of the project information, and decide whether it's a go or a no-go. And they just did this with the one over on Still River the other night and denied that one
Yeah. Well,
for a variety of reasons. So
further comment about this? I've lived there for 10 and a half years now. And, what he's calling the road in was a track that was overgrown. There were saplings over. You couldn't have driven a vehicle without cutting. Also, he made his road across part of my property. None of the neighbors were approached by it.
You wanna show us on the map?
Well,
What are you
okay,
talking about?
so, on this map, he doesn't have the property line for the Fourniers, but the property line goes like that. He built the road across here and then down here. He also piled up lots of, he cut down greenery, small trees and bushes down through there. He removed a lot of earth material and trucked it off. I have photos of him doing it. We called the town about it. The people I talked to basically dismissed it. They didn't want to hear or see the photos. And they were trucking off lots of material, loading it with, a backhoe into a dump truck, driving off. 40 minutes later, the dump truck would come back. They'd load another dump truck. But all this ground now, which was just a track through the woods, now it's compacted, 4 times wider. After we had a surveyor come and survey it, they moved the road to the other side They may have moved some of the severe marks, they're changed. One of the marks was a piece of rebar with the Severe's business name on it. It has now been pounded at least down into the ground. And there's a stream that comes right through here. There's no streams going into these ponds. It's all water that's percolating down through, and from Century Mill down through the draw, down into both of the ponds. So it definitely doesn't have a regard for the neighbors. He trespassed on my property and did a lot of destruction to it. So, I sort of think you guys should maybe take that into account with your recommendations to the state.
This is just a plan that would make it a little bit easier for you to see the property lines. That's,
I don't know if I'm following this. Is it, oh,
so
okay.
that's the,
So if you hold it like this, you're saying this is the property line right here?
Let's see.
so you can,
Yeah.
The property
Yeah,
lines in
go for
question
it.
is kind of
Lot
off the airway down
zero.
this way. There was an iron pin set by G.C. Wilson from Clinton right there.
Yeah, on
It's
the,
still there.
his road was totally on our side of the line until after the surveyor marked it. Then they, cut a lot of more earth material and carted it away and moved the road to the other side. But it's still, earth is compacted,
I mean, it
the
sounds-
ground cover's been removed, plants, trees have been removed.
Thank you. My name is Barry Bushinsky. I live at 348 South Bolton Road. It's lot 2C-15 in the plot plan.
This one.
Which one?
2C, yeah.
Right here.
Oh, the arrow's over.
Yeah, I also have the
If you-
assessment map.
Yeah,
So,
it's this one right here.
This one, okay, yeah, got it.
okay. I'd like to express my concern on an issue that the planning board does have jurisdiction on, and I think that the board member who talked about the slope on the west side is right on. I'm concerned with units 4, 5, and 6. It's on the west side of the cul-de-sac. So if you look at the topography, their elevation 358 right now is at the end there at the cul-de-sac. The west boundary, the property line is at 384. That's 26 feet of vertical height. Horizontal distance from A to B is 110 feet. So you're talking about a slope of 24%. There is a big cut.
It's a two, yeah.
There's a big cut there. So there's a major problem, I think, between 4, 5, and 6. So I am just concerned, I'm affordable housing, I'm all for it. We need housing for our kids and our elders. I just think the density, 11 units, and those, he's putting 3 into a side of a slope. I'm concerned with that. And that's the jurisdiction of the planning.
So how does the land from, so this is your house here, this guy?
Yeah, I'm not, yes,
This is you?
that's me. Yeah, but
So your land slope-
I'm talking about.
Well, I'm
yeah.
saying though, because I just saw the topography for the
No,
development.
this
So
is pretty
at-
flat.
This is about 370, and does it stay 370
Pretty
to the
much,
house?
yeah. It slopes down this way.
Slopes from you or to you?
To me. From this house.
370 and you're at like
300,
360?
yeah, so it's fairly level to here.
Okay.
I'm talking about right here and how this slopes here. This is the westerly.
Yeah.
This is 358, this is 384.
Yeah, yeah.
110 feet. You're right on.
Aren't some of the others very also up, isn't that the?
Yeah, but I'm more concerned with just
There
the
is-
severe,
there's
there's problems in that area, but I think the
another
most.
hill right
yeah.
here.
This is quite steep
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
It's
And then
really
this is-
steep.
That's behind my house.
And
And it's
it gets
clearly a
steep
straight
here.
drop down. There's no grade. It goes
Right.
straight down like,
It's just barely.
Yeah, right here.
that's correct.
Yeah, those.
And there's 2 septic systems right there.
Where this
Mine and my
is- this is a
father-in-law's,
big kind as
right
well
behind
as
that
this.
drop-off.
And I gotta say, the density, I don't know, you said the lot sizes are less, but how much less?
They
instead
don't-
of 80,000.
Well, it's not individual lots, so it's,
Can I clarify
Yeah.
what the current lot size is for the existing lot overall?
5 acres, right?
It was supposed to be 5 acres, but when we surveyed it, it was 4.37 acres.
the entire area is 4.3.
And the minimum, the
4.37,
minimum standard lot
approximately.
to be built on is what, 80,000? Yeah.
1.8, 1.8. So where you could have 2 houses, you're looking at 11. Is that
Yeah.
comparable to
Yeah.
right across the street? Lucky
I mean,
us.
with standard zoning, which I'm not even sure you can make a backland lot without waivers work, you have 273, so you could fit 2 houses, one front land and one backland lot with standard zoning. If you could even get the shape to work with
Yeah,
this.
that is also in this comprehensive permit, we had to do that
Oh,
too.
you had to do, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But 40B is another animal. Oh, yeah, you had questions.
Ryan Litchwell, 360 South Bolton Road, on the house right in that picture.
Which one?
Down at the bottom.
This
Down
one?
the bottom, very bottom,
This one?
to your right,
This one?
right there.
Okay, that's all right.
So, yeah, I'm probably one of the larger abutters. Bolton has an affordable housing plan. I assume this is the document that you guys are using to make your decisions?
The plan we have is like 15 years old.
Correct. So are we gonna
and what-
wait until you update a new one before we make a decision, or are we gonna use this as the guiding document?
The document, that document is, well, it's outdated. I mean, we're updating it to, we need to get to 10% affordable as a town. Or if we, so I guess let me take a step back. We're currently at, we have 1,700 houses, we have about 60 affordable units, which is about 3%. So, and we don't have a path to get to 10%. So, because of that, we're
So
pretty,
you're saying
because of that,
adding 3 units is worth, not in
well,
line with
let
this?
me get back to, so because we're at 3% and we don't have a path to get to 10%, and our affordable housing plan is completely out of date and doesn't make sense anymore, this is what 40B is for, in the state's perspective, is to, you know, get more diversity and affordable housing in towns that, to their view, isn't allowing it to happen. So that's why the 40B law is there.
Let me-
Now, and I agree with you in the aspect that, 3 units, when you're adding 11, you know, it's not gonna move the needle. As a town, and that's one thing that the affordable housing plan, while we're working on, is we need to figure out, you know, what we need to do to get from 3% and to 10%. And we don't necessarily need to get to 10% right away, but we need to have a plan and making steps towards it. So what they.
So
hold on.
what's the plan that you're making? You're taking proposals from other people. You said you need to make a plan, Bolton needs to make a plan. What plan are you making?
Well, there's a committee right now working on it.
Okay, so we should table all discussions until.
We can't table it, I mean, this is his land, I mean, you could, the laws are in place.
Alright.
So,
Well,
so,
let's
so the
talk about density.
hold on, the affordable housing plan, so if that was in place, and what we're working on now, and we create a plan to say, you know, earlier we talked about elderly housing, say we you know, create an apartment building on a property, you know, near 495, that's 100% affordable, and that gets us to 10%, you know, nobody in town wants a huge apartment building, but maybe it makes sense to do something like that, because then you're at your 10%, and then when this comes along, we have, once we're at the 10% or working towards it, we can be like, no, we're on plan, we have our 10%, we don't feel like in this land it works, but because as a town, we haven't done that, we're only at 3%, we don't have much of a footing with the state to stop this. So the goal with us and conservation and the ZBA is to work with the owner to try to bring it, to make it a friendly 40B, what they say, which, you know, he's here, he's presenting it, you know.
And as far as density goes, I could have up to 18 units there. But when I met.
Single-family units?
Yeah.
Right, 4.3 acres.
Yes, oh yeah.
According
Yeah.
to who?
According to the Mass Housing, the 40B chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been around since 1969. This has all been around since 1969, and what you really gotta look at this, and, you know, it's coming out of my mouth, so you can take it with a grain of salt, you can go home and Google it, But the reason for these age-restricted housing is to really, I live in Bolton actually, is to really help the town. And the way it really
If
helps
you
the
live in
town.
Bolton, put it on your property.
Well, I don't have the room. I don't have 4.37 acres.
How many acres do you have?
I have one, a
So
little over an acre.
1 acre, so you can fit 18 units on 4+
Right.
acres, so you can.
Well, anyway,
fit
let me-
4 units
please let
on
me get
Can
on my
can you
point.
talk to the board, not directly at him, okay? Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah, but so it's just, I was just trying to give you a background of 40B and like what we can and can't do. And like Mark said previously, that Still River, we denied it. Most likely they're gonna go appeal to state, and there's a good chance that the state's gonna overrule our,
Well, I'd rather you make the decision in
Yeah.
favor of current residents and make the state
yeah.
overrule.
Well, and so on Still River, we recommended to the ZBA as a planning board, we weren't the granting authority, but we recommended that they disapproved it for, you know, whatever reason, you know, it was mainly.
Yeah, a lot of reasons.
Yeah, a lot of reasons. So that's the background. And the plan we're working on, there's a committee formed, 6 months ago to work on the plan, whether it's, zoning or whatever, or, the town sponsoring a senior housing development, whatever it is. If, over the past year, if we increased our inventory by 0.5%, we can delay a project for a year. If we've increased it by a whole percent, we can delay a 40B project for 2 years. So if we're making steps towards getting to that 10%, the state will allow us to have more control over our destiny as where 40Bs go. But because we haven't even come close to doing that, we're very susceptible to 40Bs. For instance, earlier in this meeting, we talked about everybody knows the 27 acres, the Kane property that's up for sale. I mean, me personally, I would love a business there, but if they wanted to put a 300 unit, 40B housing development there, we would have no say over it. We could, we just have no control over 40Bs. It's hard. So, we try to bring the developers in and, request, and we try to make it a friendly 40B. So that's why we're here.
So because of the mistakes that were made by Bolton's government in not establishing this plan and keeping it up to date, we're susceptible to.
We did establish a plan, and we've tried to pass bylaws in front of town meeting, but the town votes them down. So there's not much we can do. I mean, we present articles, the town votes them down. So that's why we're here. People, I don't know.
It's not just
I think the point, even if the plan was up to date,
Yeah.
all that says is that if we've met that 0.5%
Yeah.
increase from the previous year,
Yeah.
that we get to delay or not consider any 40Bs for a period of time.
Yeah.
The plan is more of a guideline for the planning board and for the town in general of what kind of housing do we want, what's important to the townspeople. Does that help with affordable, how is that gonna help us get to that, to that goal?
Right.
To the state's goal.
The problem is you're not being proactive
He's
about it,
still.
and we're susceptible to this. Let me just read one thing. So this is actually word for word verbatim. Bolton needs a range of affordable housing options that both provide these populations, so they're talking about affordable housing for elderly, and preserve the historical rural atmosphere of our agricultural past. Smaller affordable housing projects dispersed throughout the town with reasonable densities will provide a varied housing opportunities while maintaining our small town look and feel. Bolton's goal is to develop a community that welcomes diversity in the population by providing a wide range of affordable housing options. Now that sounds reasonable, that doesn't sound like.
Well, so it's all perspective. What I just said, we could end up with like a 300 unit.
Well, you define density later in this.
Okay.
So density is defined as 2 single-family homes on 1 buildable lot. So this would be a back lot, right? But you don't have enough acreage to even put a back lot in there.
Yeah.
So is this even a buildable lot currently?
Like I said previously, I'm not sure if there's shaping
Right.
requirements and
So
stuff.
you would need a variance to
And
put
that-
even a
yeah.
single house
Yeah.
on this property, let alone 11 units.
I'm sure you could fit a single house.
Right.
The backland lot, I'm not sure shaping wise.
The lot
Right.
shape factor doesn't count towards a back lot.
Oh, it doesn't, you just need the 4 acres. Oh, but so
You need
you need
4.5
4
acres.
acres, and it's only 4.7, so you wouldn't have enough for backland lot then.
4.37,
Right.
So you only with zoning could fit the 1 house.
yeah.
Thank you. Also, thank you.
Yeah.
Dusty Sheldon, 63 Spectacle Hill Road. So I have a variety of issues that I could go by. But one of the things that no one has raised, and I guess is it conservation? So I've been living in my house since 1978. So I have, and the Bonazzoli kids lived in my backyard over the years in tents. So I know what this piece of property is like. And you can go down, even this last summer, you can go down there on a hot summer day, and what do you smell? You smell diesel and grease. Because Bonazzoli had 2 or 3 road graders. They had 2 cranes. They had a number of bulldozers, backhoes. And that's where they used to change the oil and grease the products. And even, like I said, last summer, you can walk in there on a hot summer day. You don't smell nice greenery or anything else. All you smell is diesel and grease. So my question is, who do we talk to about, and when when Gigi pulled all their equipment out there, we went and had our water tested. Now, our well's 520 feet deep, but we had our water tested just to make sure that there was not any, that we could determine at that point in time, that because of his moving his stuff, it created an issue with our water. Fortunately, so far, we have not had a problem with our water. But I cannot believe that there is a whole lot of very, very bad stuff underneath the surface. Now, my neighbors, and I've heard the 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, heavy equipment working down in the pit. So why were they down there? Were they, and I don't know, I didn't see the pictures about what was being hauled out of there. Was there an attempt to get some of that toxic, that I would not live down there, not in a million years. But what's back there is my septic system and my father-in-law's septic system, but I wouldn't live in that place. I wouldn't want to have a garden down there. I wouldn't want to have anything back there. It is very nice soil. I have wonderful perk tests. But because I have such a wonderful perk test and the soil is so great, I know that the plugs were just pulled onto on the engines and the oil was drained out into the ground. I know it. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen the big patches of oil down there. So my question then would be, A, was material taken out of there? And B, who is it that I would go to represent myself to? Is it the Conservation Commission?
I think Board of Health, right?
Board of Health?
Board of Health probably,
Yeah.
for that, yeah.
For a sub, for,
I was gonna say, just as a matter of record, if there's late night construction going on, it's generally not allowed, so.
Well, it was reported to the police.
Okay.
I mean, this is not something that we're making up. The report was made to the police.
I think that's been remedied, the late night stuff.
Well, my question was, what was being hauled out of there?
Yeah.
Was this an attempt to clean up the toxic crap that's in there?
Yeah. For the standard subdivision process, does Board of Health have to sign off on anything?
Yes, they still have to meet Title V, state regulations, state law.
For all the septic
For
system.
septic.
Well, like, is there soil tests and?
I don't know that jurisdiction very well, I don't know what exactly, I know they need to do perk tests and test holes, but beyond that, I
There's
don't know
not
what type
any
of testing.
testing required for you're talking about contamination.
I know for fill, when they bring in fill, we require it to be documented clean, correct?
You can,
Yeah.
yeah,
I know I brought that up before.
yeah.
If you have I think you should make a complaint to the Board of Health, I guess, I mean.
The
right?
Board of Health is definitely the board to.
Like I said, I wouldn't want to live in one of those places, period.
She's had
Yeah.
Kate Bayuk, 53 Wheeler Road. I'm wondering what accommodations the developer is going to make to the neighbors, what types of concessions, what type of building hours, how quick of a time frame we can expect, what kind of disruption we're gonna see. This is a school bus route. So in terms of being a friendly neighbor, what is he offering?
I mean, standard for our subdivisions that we manage, we do Monday through Friday, 9 AM to 5 PM. Is that right?
No, it's 7 to 5.
Oh, 7 to 5. So
Our typical construction
yeah.
hours, Monday through Friday.
And then
7 to 5.
Saturday on, well, but Saturday on request.
On approval.
So we're moving away from that.
Yeah, we're getting away from Saturdays.
Well, these are a lot of neighbors, the same neighbors who have been impacted by Century Mill for
Yeah.
a decade,
Yeah.
so I don't think there's a lot of tolerance.
I mean,
Yeah,
would you
so-
be willing to go to 7 to
Yeah.
5 on?
Yeah,
the
what
week?
I'm hopeful, Eric, to do is to work with all the boards and committees and all the abutters
Yeah,
to the best of my ability. On all my current projects, I'm doing 2 different projects in Clinton. I work very well with those people there, it's where I grew up. So I'm very local and I want to be as best person I can be. And we did rectify the situation, to be honest with you. We had an employee we asked to leave the site many times, and then I had the chief of police get involved, and we drove the employee back to Manchester, New Hampshire. We escorted him back, so that was late night. He was working on his personal vehicle there. We weren't hauling anything out at night. We had nothing to hide. I've had several conversations with the town about cleaning the site up. Like, again, it's a lot of slash. Where we're taking the slash is to the appropriate site. It's in Route 70 in Lancaster, it's called Clear Summit. They charge us $8 a yard to dispose of it, and they make mulch with it. And I made sure I didn't touch anything within the 100-foot buffer zone. I flagged it all. And I'm waiting to meet with conservation, because along that existing road, there is still a pile of slash you can see. So we haven't done that, but I want to try to restore again back to the original grade. On those units over there, what I call the air wing, up in there, up
these
high,
ones.
that there is a slope there and it's somewhat steep, but that's all man-made. That was the kind of, I envisioned they took a bulldozer back in the day and they just pushed it up for privacy. So I would like to work that grade a bit too. And the grade over here on the units 3, 4, and 5, I believe. 4, 5, and 6, it is steep, and we're looking into that with Dushan and see what's the best way we can deal with that.
Erica, just a question, so, as this process moves forward and you get more of a design done, and the grading is looked at and the stormwater mitigation is looked at, does it ever come back to, I can't remember, we do
Yes,
get a chance to.
So actually, you provided 2 sets of comments. So your initial set of comments were to mass housing. And
Yeah.
then once an applicant makes their application for comprehensive permit to zoning board of appeals, at that point, I then go back to all the departments, all of the boards, and ask for additional input. Well, not additional, but I asked for input as part of that public hearing process.
So we'll be able to get a chance to see.
Oh,
Yeah, you'll be able to see the
full
road
design
graded, the stormwater mitigation in place.
and how that works.
Yep.
And that's when we'll make a list of.
Yeah, because I mean, I hear what you're saying, what you're trying to do, but without seeing the proposed
Right.
layout, it's hard to comment on that.
We are like way over schedule now, I'd like to wrap this up. Is there anything that hasn't been said?
Yeah. So
You have something new?
Yep.
Okay, let's hear it.
Leroy Millet, 45 Wheeler Road. So the back of my property is directly across the street from what is the entrance now to the construction site. It's what everybody keeps referring to as the open wetlands across the street. So my area of concern would be, given that it's the back part of my property, it is also defined wetlands, it's a resource area, what are the water controls for during the site construction, you know, all phases of it, also the leaching beds for the septic systems for all the units. Since the majority of that property on that side of the road is mine, and it is downhill from the entire site.
Are you talking about here, is this where you are?
No, direct
across the
street.
Over here,
Yes.
okay, but which is downhill of this whole.
Yes.
Significantly
Downgraded.
Downgraded
Yeah,
in
okay.
elevation significantly from the entire site.
Yeah.
So essentially, anything that happens water-wise is gonna end up in
Yeah.
that back part of my property. So my concern is, you know, with my bulk, water quality, and then also, you know, any wetlands issues that are back there that could be impacted, and I just wanna make sure it is mitigated and accounted for. The other concern that Mr. Moore brought up is the culvert that's there is a significant road issue. It does flood across the road, and he mentioned that that is designed to go across the road onto the back of my property. I wasn't aware of that. I don't know if that is the case, if that could be, you know, verified or considered, and I could be at least notified and, you know, kind of considered throughout this process. I would appreciate it.
Well, I will say, just to, with regard to the surface runoff and stuff like that, they still need to meet the state regulations with regard to the stormwater, so, but it would be good if you could also look, that we do have a local regulation.
The DPW has already been involved. They're working with our engineering team, with Ducharme and Dillis. We're collaborating with them. When I spoke to DPW the day of the site visit, he said that they had a plan worked out, so I'm assuming you're gonna hear from Ducharme or the DPW director.
Okay.
But just, I was gonna say, we have a local requirement to meet peak volumes, not just peak rates, so if you could consider that, that would be, I think.
Yeah, we have
it'd go
excellent
to a
soil
lot
for
of your-
recharge.
What does the state allow, Danielle?
It only requires peak rate, which, for the 210 and 100-year storm, it doesn't require peak volume. But since you have great soils, I have a feeling meeting the peak volume probably is not gonna be a huge.
So essentially, that would allow the water to be absorbed on site.
Yeah, so basically what it does is
transferring
it
across the-
requires you, by meeting not only the peak rate, which is the rate at which it goes off the site, you have to meet existing, but peak volume means the amount. So it's not gonna be anything more than what would be under existing conditions, because you're adding a lot of impervious area, which would allow it to go to your site a lot quicker.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay, thank you.
So I just, Margaret Campbell's 5 Spectacle Hill Road, I just wanna say that at least I'm not concerned about having affordable housing in my neighborhood. That's not the goal or the issue. I think really, there's not been a sign of good faith right out of the bat, in that there was this encroachment on someone else's property, and when that was brought to, this is third party, but I understand that they were threatening to sue the neighbors. So so no good faith. The other,
I don't wanna get into
the
that
main
now.
issue is, aside from that, is that, we are strong-armed with 40B. We're not against having, I'm not against having, affordable housing. I am against, squeezing 11 single-family homes and the runoff and the septic that will come with that.
Yeah, so the thing with 40B is, our local zoning laws just don't apply. So, I mean, he just has to go by the state zoning laws, and it sounded like you could fit even more with those laws, right?
That's correct.
So, this is a good introduction to the project, with lots of concerns.
I'd like to say one more thing. He was-
Hold on,
Yeah,
I mean.
well, you seem to
is
be
it-
wrapping it up, and.
Yeah, 'cause we're an hour over, I mean, is there anything different than you've said?
Yes, it is.
I'll give you
Reference
30 seconds, and
Okay,
then
in
this is the
reference
last
to
question.
something Mr. Vernon said,
Yeah.
there is elevation here, and he's been claiming that it's just a pushed-up pile from old times. Maybe it is, but there's 3-foot, 2-foot, 1-foot trees on it. And if he starts cutting back into it, the stability of those trees, which are on my property, is going to be impacted. And so it takes a long time to grow a 3-foot diameter tree. So it's not just a simple pile of rubble from the gravel yard there. It's probably, the gravel yard was cut out from an embankment.
There you go.
To have a 3-foot tree takes a long time, and that probably precedes the Bonazzoli. So it's not true what he's saying about what the gravel is.
Well, I think to get to everyone's concerns is, once we're able to see a proposed layout with proposed grading, we can see where that limit of work is gonna go. Is it gonna go up into where you're concerned about where you're talking about, you know, down here, so I think that's, until we have a plan.
You seem sort of
but
cavalier
it's,
about what it was, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, I saw the topo, I mean, there's definitely some
It's not a
earthwork that's
10 or
gonna be.
12 foot elevation change.
So is it okay to continue with the heavy equipment in there in the meantime, until there's some kind of plan?
I mean, it's his property, I mean,
So you can, so the hills could be gone.
No, the intent, and I'll give you my word, and you can bring me up in front of the selectmen, I'm going there tomorrow night. The only hauling we've been doing has been what we call slash, I don't know if you understand that term. It's a bunch of trees that Bonazzoli did leave there, and we're trying to clean it up. There's a bunch of stumps that were there, we're trying to clean up. I'm trying to restore the property and make it much better for the neighborhood.
What about all the gravel and rocks?
all right,
inside
I'm
the
gonna
road?
end it,
Okay.
yeah, I'm gonna
That's
end
not
it.
slash.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we
Was
missed
it?
the mark a little bit. The point of this was to have comments from Mass Housing, and at this point, board, I still don't have comments. Did the board want to provide comments to Mass Housing? Or?
I mean, it's, how do we comment, I mean,
Yeah.
we just heard the thing, can we do, when is comments due?
End of the month. I mean, we can try and get comments together at the next meeting, and if they're still accepting comments, we can, you know, I can.
Well, so what comments do we have anything? Danielle? Our comment maker?
Well, it's hard to make comments when I don't have a proposed plan
Yeah,
to look
I
at.
mean, I mean, Mass Housing, I mean, if we're just hearing this, seeing it for the first time
Yeah, how do we
tonight,
make comments?
and selectmen are just seeing it for the first time tomorrow night,
How
how do we get comments by the end of the month?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mass Housing provides the town 30 days, and
Okay.
that, this is the first time I could get it in front of you, so that's just the way that the process works. I agree, it's not ideal by any
So,
means,
so Mass
but-
Housing gets these comments, but then do they get our next set of like comments, or is it just
No, that
CBA?
goes just to ZBA, yeah.
I mean, I don't understand how it makes.
So this is it?
No,
Excuse me.
No.
Wow,
No, it's,
It sounds like it's.
Are you gonna inform us about what the
of course not.
Mass Housing is gonna rule without hearing
No.
anything, basically.
Mass
without
Housing
hearing
doesn't make any ruling until they have to, right? I mean, whether the ZBA approves or denies it, right?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Why do we have to give comments to Mass Housing
So
now?
Mass
They're not
Housing,
making an
the-
approval.
The first step through this 40B process is with Mass Housing, they're the subsidizing agency. They give the preliminary site approval. Once James receives that approval, then he's free to go to the town and seek a comprehensive permit with the zoning board of appeals.
Mhm.
And then it goes back to Mass Housing, they do a final review, but those are sort of the steps to get to construction, to get the permit.
So has Mass Housing, what has Mass Housing done thus far?
I can't really speak to that, I mean, you could call Mass Housing and
No, I
ask
mean,
them.
what in the steps?
So they've received the application, I believe they've reviewed it, they did a site visit last week where several of the town departments, heads had gone and discussed it with them. I think at this point, they needed to do an appraisal of the property, and I think that was one of the last pieces, but there may be things that I'm not aware of that they still have to do.
So this first step is pretty much Mass Housing saying, okay, this seems like a sort of legitimate project, go ahead, make the plans.
Yeah, there's certain requirements that they review, it's in the application.
It seems like it's a fairly high level review, they're not
Yes,
digging,
it's
they're
very
not
preliminary.
digging into stormwater
No.
and stuff like that. They're just,
And that's just the 40B process in general, I mean, even when they get to ZBA, they technically only have to provide preliminary data, and that can be challenging when you're trying to review something. But that's Mass General law, we don't really have any say in that, so.
So when did the 30 days kick off is what I'm trying to understand.
In April, yes, in April.
This is April. It's like
So.
6 more days.
So they made
and
the
we're done.
application April 1st, but they haven't heard anything about it until today.
Correct, yep.
And we're host.
So they only have 6 days.
the public hearing hasn't even opened yet.
Yeah, but you have to
You're giving
approve it
comments.
so far or not, you can comment on it.
We don't approve anything right now.
No,
We
but
just
you're
have to give
providing
comments to
comments.
Massachusetts.
And you can say, our comment is, we don't think it's a good plan, or we think it's a great plan, or whatever, and we'd like to know what your
So when we had the
comments
site
would be.
visit last week with Mass Housing, the representative from Mass Housing actually said, because I said, do you want comments, you know, planning board will likely have comments, do you want it directly from planning board, or should everything be funneled through board of selectmen? And his response to that was, we prefer that it all goes through board of selectmen, actually, because we wanna know that board of selectmen has seen all of the town department
So we need to
comments.
submit our
So,
comments to board of
depending on how things play out,
Yeah.
we could either do it separate or together, it just depends
How
on
would Board of
timing.
Selectmen
So
even-
for,
if
as
they
of
heard-
right now, I have comments from fire department, which I have sent to Don and Linda, and hopefully that'll get incorporated with board of selectmen, but, you know, why don't we add it to the next agenda? I can call MS Housing tomorrow and see what their timeline is, and let him know that, you know, look,
We don't meet till May eighth, and
you know, we can
We'd
get you
like to-
comments on May 9th, does that
Yeah.
work? And if not, then maybe we, you know, I can draft something for the board and you can, you know, individually respond to it in an email, something like that.
Did we do the same for Still River?
We did the same exact thing for Silver River.
Could you send us what we sent? to Steve?
So for mass housing, the only comment that you really had was that you had requested for it to go through design review board.
Okay, but for our recommendation to the ZBA, we had 14 items.
Yes.
Very
that's-
specific,
yes.
very specific changes. that we
But I
wanted.
think it's gonna be challenging to do the same thing until you have a designed plan.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we
So-
can't, we
And
can't
that's
comment on
why,
most of the
that's,
stuff
yeah.
till there's a design plan.
So.
I mean, I have a couple, initial comments, I mean, I've already said them here, that we could ask. I mean, one of them was to consider the local requirements with
Yep.
regard to stormwater.
Yep,
I
and
would
that's a
like
good
that,
one.
incorporated.
We can also, we could add the operating hours too, that was brought
Yeah,
up. That's a nice
to
comment.
comply,
Yep.
comply with the local operating hours. What was the other one? It's just a question, again, it's not jurisdiction here, but, it would be a recommendation to definitely go to design review board, but
Right.
also, I would think a notice of intent would be required for Concom. That's just my thoughts, just
Right.
because of the stormwater and the buffer zone, but I'll let Concom
Right.
make that jurisdiction, but, and I understand you've submitted an RDA and they can give it a positive determination and
Right.
do it, force you that way.
Right.
But that would just, those are kind of the ones I'm thinking of, just the top of my head, without having a proposed design that, triggers some local stuff that would be good to incorporate, into. And, yeah, the earthwork and all that stuff, I mean, without a proposed plan, I can't comment on that. Those are kind of just the few ones I had based off of these discussions. I don't know if anyone has any additional.
I mean, are they expect us to say we approve or
Yeah.
disapprove it?
No, because it's
yeah.
not your jurisdiction, so they're really.
Well,
just looking
and
at
I don't
comments.
think we can even make that determination
Right,
when you
yeah.
don't have a proposed layout.
I'm just
I mean,
wondering what they expect from these comments. Yeah, Massachusetts.
Just if you have input, I don't think they have any real expectation, it's just they wanna give the town an opportunity to weigh in.
Yeah. Those would be my initial weigh-in comments.
I'm gonna side on a lot of the concerns with the residents. I think it's no disrespect whatsoever. I know development and everything else. I think it's just way too much to put in such a small area. I really do. And I think there's gonna be a lot more of an impact than what's being said.
I mean, that's gonna be a concern all along, so you can put that in our comments, that we feel like it's dense for the location.
Yeah.
Concerned with the density
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
the units within the
Um,
lot, and the
In,
grade change.
in relation to the, well, I don't know if you wanna say that, but just, we feel like 4.73 acres and the
4.3.
4.37.
4.37 acres.
And that's approximate.
The, elevation changes,
Are significant.
the, land shape, proximity to neighbors, it feels like a pretty dense development to us, without having full plans, so I guess those are our comments.
So the elevation changes are significant, what was the other comment that you just
The
said?
density, just the density.
Oh, I have
Is
that.
Yeah, yeah, and the proximity to neighbors and already flooding, other wet, flooding and different wetland concerns in the area, that we're already having. Anything
That's
else?
the way that gets addressed.
Huh?
I like that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll draft this in a letter and the board
Yeah.
can.
Somehow make those mumbling
Sure.
Yeah.
ramblings, some kind of coherent.
And then I'll get it to Mass Housing next week, once you guys get a chance to.
Yeah, send us
Yeah.
back out
Yeah,
what you,
thank you.
all right, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Your first of, well,
Yeah.
start of many, many meetings.
Wait, let's,
Yeah, just everybody, apply to Board of Health, ZBA, Planning Board, Board of Selectmen, and you'll get all those agendas, Conservation, and I'm sure you're gonna be seeing this probably for 20, 30, 40 meetings coming up, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Did you want
Thank
this
you.
back, or?
I have a copy.
If I can keep one, that would be great,
yeah.
and then I'll leave it. Thank you.
Easier.
That is not.
is that somebody?
Oh, I think that's right. Earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, sorry. I wasn't sure.
Well, so much for being on schedule.
But my directive, my design was to.
You're on the record, so just so you know.
Village overlay.
Huh?
That's a direct, what I've learned about what the village overlay district is trying to do, and that's exactly the way I designed it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
And when he read that, if you remember him reading that, you went around with your eye onto that. I know he's not happy with density, that's why I went from 18 down to 11 to get that space in.
Yeah, I had to go back, because I had
Yeah.
invested money in the fall.
Yeah.
And,
I was
think it
hopeful
either
that that would've been
5,000 or
approved.
7,000 that I had asked for.
Well, we're not
So
approving
I'll
it, just
go back and
approving
check,
anything
make
yet.
sure
No,
We're
I'm
getting what we.
Oh, the
want.
village.
I wanted to go to town
Yeah.
meeting
Just
because,
don't know the cottage overlay.
because I live in town and I don't want a 300 unit complex. I'd rather have as many of these, and, you know, because when I originally looked at this, if I could afford it, I'd make them all rental. Now they did all.
Yeah.
I can't afford it.
See, I love later.
Yeah, I've been banging the drum on this for a while now.
I know you have, and I
And I
remember
got
meeting
you-
with you 2 years ago when I bought the land.
Oh, yeah, I remember
came
that.
for you with the swearing factor.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
And I
To get
got
it back
right
in the
away.
law.
Yeah.
And you was
yeah.
like, and you said to me, it's gotta be something
Oh my
else.
God.
That's what you said to me at that meeting.
I
It's gotta
know.
be something else. And then I.
That feels like a lifetime ago.
I know, but then I bumped into Erica, and she said, hey, you know, we've been trying to do this village overlay district, and she mentioned my office at the
Cottage
time.
overlay.
Yeah, cottage overlay, sorry.
Yeah.
She mentioned that to me, and at my time, my office was right across from the Riverwalk. And she said, that guy's been in before the town. So I looked at that, the Riverwalk, and I did all that, and I asked her about a year and a half
And was
ago,
easier
if
to
I
balance
do,
doing things while
I
was
called it
home.
age restricted. I
Yeah.
was corrected by Mike Busby, he said, no, age targeted, you know, would they count? And
I just
Erica
feel
thought,
bad
no,
because
it
I
wouldn't
feel
count,
like
so I sat and waited.
Yeah, because we got a
You know,
comment from the state
40 hours.
that you can't discriminate against age groups or whatever.
But that's why he used that term, I guess.
Age targeted.
Yeah.
So if you look at the impact, and there's always potential, like I talked to Mike Busby about this, that somebody being a grandparent might have a situation in their family where they might have to take care of a child.
Yeah.
Right? So as long as it does that, then they were really happy with that. I look at it from a school impact point of view, and the amount of tax dollars.
I agree. So, I mean, the first comment I made was that
No,
I think the general philosophy of the over 55 is a good one. But
Yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
we're done with
Yeah,
this.
yeah, sorry. It's gonna be a late night.
Just to be subtle.
I can be easily tricked into a conversation, so you got me.
Alright, Hogan Farm subdivision.
I'm fading here.
Alright, let's do Hogan really quick.
Yeah, I'm good.
And then all the other
Go
stuff,
for it.
let's move to the next agenda.
Done.
My head is swimming.
Alright.
I'm okay with iron pens and Lewis.
I didn't
So,
even-
so what's the point of these bounds? It's to,
It's to identify the boundary for the open space and the no cut.
So
Well,
it's
it's actually the no cut buffer area.
So instead of like granite monuments, we're allowed.
Instead of concrete
Yeah.
or granite, they can do iron, and we've been doing
Yeah.
across the board.
I'm fine with that.
So that's why I didn't even have a short meeting, because I thought.
I'm friendly with
Can I make a
Gerald,
motion
does that.
to allow the
I did a
use of iron
project
pins
for
for
her
little
at
concrete
one of her
mounds for
houses.
Hogan Farm subdivision?
The lady works for the senior center.
it's like,
She lives right
I'm
across
not
the
wild
street.
about the idea in general
Oh,
because,
okay.
well, I just see the
Yeah.
concrete there, the steel rods just being hammered down into the ground and
Yeah.
disappear.
Yeah, so,
It is true,
You know, I
you're
mean,
right, you're right,
You know, I
it is
mean,
true,
you know,
it is true.
property owners, you know, goes to mow an area that, you
So-
know, has this rod
so-
sitting there, and they just take a sledgehammer and, you know, you know, there's no marker there now, they can cut back however they want.
Eric, you've allowed this though?
Keys Farm, Tadmore.
Well, but it wasn't
Century
in
Mill
the
doesn't even doesn't even require monuments for their open space. we just updated our subdivision rules and regs to allow for this.
That's what's good, yeah, that's
Yeah.
It's no brainer.
Yeah.
I
I
mean-
mean, that's fine.
So what, I mean, what's their, what would they, is it just open space where you feel that they would just go in and drive a stake?
But they're not allowed to mow that, I mean, the whole
Yeah.
point of the open space is
So you
they're not
don't
allowed
touch
to
it.
touch that.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Right,
you're
and-
saying
and
that
these are-
at the border, they can come in and just plow over it or something like that, and kinda.
Well, I mean, you're a homeowner, you're out there, and like, yeah, I want to extend my yard back another 20 feet, yeah, they'll just.
There's that iron pin,
There's that iron.
take
pin,
that out and throw it.
Well, take it out, throw it away, or just hammer it down inwards.
Well, I mean, you
know.
gotta kinda think about it, what were those, what are they there for originally, is the fact that we didn't have the technology like we do today. Okay, when they survey it, boom, there's, you know, dig down a little bit, oh, there's the iron pin, what do you know? I mean, the records are there, they're better
Yeah.
kept than they were, 50, 60 years ago,
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah, GPS now too.
Yeah.
Makes it easier.
Robotic toll stations and everything else.
Is the board okay with that vote, or are we redoing the vote,
I
or?
don't think we voted.
Well, we have a motion,
Yeah.
we just haven't voted.
Mark didn't want a second.
Oh, I thought James seconded.
James
Yeah, James
seconded.
seconded,
James seconded.
James seconded.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Okay.
What was that?
I was thinking.
Should
I
Can we
mean-
try that again?
Oh,
I know.
Mulligan.
all right, go ahead, say it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No. I don't like the idea in general. I mean, allowing a mix is fine, but, I think in general.
It passes non-unanimous.
If these are the only monuments that are there, I feel like that, it should be more permanent.
You just
but-
wanted to be a descendant on your potential last possible vote.
I'm still putting this on.
Oh, one more.
And then if you could just sign on the top and the bottom in one space. I don't know if you can.
What's it? Oh,
That's
just-
for the registry, just so
Oh,
that they can.
so
compare.
print my name?
You don't have to print your name. Oh, I guess you can, because I'll print it for you, but I guess they'll wanna see your handwriting on mine.
Oh, and the top and bottom?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been getting up an hour earlier than normal on my new schedule, so now it's like 10:15, I'm like, ugh. People yelling at me, they're coming forward.
What time do you have to get up before the kids?
Well,
My kids get on the bus by 7:45, so.
yeah, well, my kids are really slow. Really tough to like, there's lots of
Yeah, you-
on the
yeah.
toilet and there's just a lot of.
My youngest is 8, so I'm like, I'm shouting, by 7 o'clock, I'm like, get up, you guys get dressed. They do
Yeah,
their
so
own
I get
breakfast.
up at 6 and get my stuff and everything ready and I'm pulling them out of bed at 6:50-ish. The
I
young-
usually go around at 7 o'clock and just start yelling.
Yeah, shades up at 7 for sure.
But they have to do everything, other than on their lunches. But I'm getting to the point where I might have to stop doing that too. I just don't trust my kids to actually pack a
Well,
good lunch,
Connor,
so.
yeah, Connor's getting pretty independent. He's about to turn 8.
And the top.
Oh,
Yeah, do a top.
same thing.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No one else.